Okay. Yes. Okay. I'd like to call the Community Infrastructure Service Committee to order, please. Okay, I just, for the consent items, we do have two delegations that are wanting to speak on the consent item number 4 and consent item number 6. So with that, why don't we call to move the rest of the consent items, and then we'll do those individually. Okay, so items 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. Do we have any questions on those? And 5, sorry. 5, 7, and 8. Councillor Glenn Graham?
Yeah, on number 8, I do appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I would just like to ask if we have looked at other options, including fewer schools participating rather than the numbers that are suggested here if we did increase the youth forum, and also if there's any indication if there's other partners beyond Rotary that are waiting in the wings. Someone could speak to that.
Ms. McCabe? Just hold on, sorry.
Okay, there we go, through the chair. We haven't explored other funding partners, do you mean, beyond Rotary at this point? Because we wanted to bring this forward to council first to ensure that you were interested in having the program continue or expanded in the case of the youth forum as we've suggested. So no, we haven't put any effort into that. Sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Yeah, the first question would be just as a scale of degree, whether or not we have looked at options that are less than going a full-blown expansion of the youth forum, if we've looked at 1 or 2 more schools, or have we looked at it in increments rather than saying let's blow it up and have a lot more involvement? Can we do it in a smaller scale?
Well, we've been trying to get St. Mary's on board for a little bit because there's just the 2 in the Catholic in the separate system. And then when we've started talking to the regional board, this was a manageable way, even though it was, I mean, ideally we would like to be in all the schools. So this is actually, using the Futures Forum method, it's actually a fairly, I mean, it's a manageable way. We think we can handle that, even though it is going out to all 6 of the high schools.
Mr. Chair, at this point, I would like to deal with Youth Forum and My Ideal City separately. I think it would be my suggestion that we defer the Youth Forum until we have a bit more information about other potential partners and perhaps a little bit of a comment on whether we did just St. Mary's. That would be, perhaps we could come back on the 30th with that.
Okay. We'll go through all those. We'll go through the consent items that we're talking right now, and then we'll go to, when we're done with those, we'll go to 8 and we'll follow up through with your comments. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I have some questions on the youth forum, but my first questions are on the bicycle lane installation on Battler Road.
Councillor Fernandez, I've put those items on the side for now, consent items, because we do have delegations. So we're dealing with consent items.
Sorry.
Items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 right now.
Sorry, I should have circled that one. I didn't.
Oh, okay. Not 4, sorry.
Okay, so we're dealing with 8.
And 8's been pulled out as well. Yeah. So we're dealing really with 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. So if anyone has any questions for those. Okay. Okay, so with that, we're going to move to item number. What's that? Oh yeah, Councillor Galloway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You moved them. That's what I was going to say. Councillor Galloway Seelock has moved those consent items. All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? To carried unanimously. So we'll move on to item number 4. Consent item number 4. And that has to deal with the on-street parking regulations on Commonwealth Street. And we have, who do we have on staff? It's Justin. Justin, can you please give your report before I bring down the delegation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. So the report dealing with on-street parking regulations on Commonwealth Street, this came forward as a request from a resident on Commonwealth Street in order to improve safety for children accessing school and issues with parking around the school times. Our recommendation before you is that the existing no stopping anytime from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday be extended on the south side of Commonwealth Street between Max Becker Drive to a point 125 meters east of that, and that the Uniform Traffic Bylaw be amended accordingly. We received 21 out of 52 responses to our survey. 16 of those, or 76.2%, were in favor of the proposed changes, and 5 were opposed, or 23.8%. Something that I would like to note in addition that wasn't included in the report, we have a safety patrol at Commonwealth Street and Commonwealth Crescent to assist children across the street, as well as a crossing guard at Max Becker Drive and Commonwealth Street to assist with children.
Okay. So, pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. And with that, I would like to call upon our one delegation, Mr. Jonathan Grundy. Please come forward. Welcome, Mr. Grundy.
Good afternoon. I wanted to come today to speak on this because although I do agree that we should have a parking ban on the street, I feel that the opposite side of the street, the north side, should have the ban. My reasons for that are the school is actually on the south side of the street. So if we ban parking on the south side, then we're forcing children who are driving to get out of the cars and walk across the street. Whereas if we ban it on the north side, they're getting out of the cars on the side of the street that the school's on, and there's no safety concern with them crossing at all.
Okay.
So I feel that, looking at safety in that, and I had spoken with Mr. Pimentel, who had done the study and the survey, and one of his reasons that he had put forward was because there's a path to the school on the south side, but I feel that having students get out on the south side to start with would really sort of curb any of those issues.
Okay. We do have a few questions for you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Thanks for coming in, Jonathan, and we've had emails over talking about this. Was there any other reasons that you can remember that staff gave you for the decision to go on that side of the street?
The 3 reasons that were given to me were the request had originated on the south side of the street, the fact that there's a path there, as well as the fact that there's existing infrastructure in the form of lampposts that signs can be attached to. Personally, I feel that if we're looking for safety in our communities, then we should be looking at overall safety as opposed to one person's request, as well as, I'm not sure how much metal signposts cost, but I feel like that is a small price to pay for making sure that primary age students are able to get to school.
And do you reside on the street we're talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and so you received the survey?
Yes, I did.
And was there any options on what side of the street? What were the options given?
There were 2 options. The first option, I believe, was to keep the status quo and not put a ban in effect. The second option was only to ban on the south side. There was no option to ban on the north side.
Thank you. I'll have some questions of staff, and I have a recommendation at the appropriate time.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. There's no orientation on this map, so I'm trying to establish the school is between Isabella and Commonwealth.
The school is on the left-hand side of the map you can see there.
Okay, and I'm trying to. Is there a significant backup in the mornings and
there really
school?
is. There is. If you look at basically 8:30 to, I believe Williamsburg Public School starts at 9, give or take a couple minutes. So if you're looking at anywhere from 8:30 to 9:15, the street is really packed. As well as for pickup at the end of the day people start showing up at about 2:30, and then that goes to about 3:15, I believe.
Okay. And the pathway, I'm trying to understand the pathway.
It's about halfway down on the left-hand side there.
Oh, I see. Okay. And I have a question of stat. Well, you would know as well. There is a crossing guard?
The crossing guard is actually crossing Max Becker and Commonwealth Street. That's about 2 blocks west.
It's 2 blocks from the pathway, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And the safety patrol that was mentioned, I haven't actually seen the safety patrol.
You've not seen them?
I haven't seen it myself. I haven't been looking for it, mind you, but the times that I've been there, and my son goes to the YMCA daycare that is attached to Williamsburg Public School, and I haven't seen a safety patrol there.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. We have no further questions, so Councillor Galloway Seelock, you can, Councillor Galloway Seelock has some questions as well.
Jonathan's done and he can take a seat. Is that
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
We'll deal with it now, I think. So I wanted to ask some of the rationale behind the decision. Can you tell me why it wasn't an option for residents to potentially agree with having no parking on the other side of Commonwealth?
Through the chair, this is a typical type of survey that we have. We ask for our recommendation based on us as staff going out to the site, looking at what the conditions are along the street to determine a recommendation, and then survey residents along the street based on that recommendation. So one of the significant components of that recommendation is the pathway that's located there, and blocking the view of a child that might step out in front of a parked car makes it more dangerous than having that segment of the street open for vehicles.
So maybe the option then is to block off just around the path and then go on the other side of the street as well to alleviate that safety concern. Is there an opportunity to resurvey the residents with those two options and allow them through the summer months and allow them to decide which one they would prefer and come back to council and make sure that that can be in place by next school year? Because realistically, nothing is going to change by the end of the school year anyways. We're not going to have signs out there before the end of the school year. Is that something that staff would be able to do?
Through the chair, our recommendation would be to maintain no stopping on one side of the street. Otherwise, you're creating some congestion along the street, having cars parked on either side. So we would recommend that we remain as is, but that could be an option if council directs staff to do that.
Okay, I'm suggesting that there still would be parking on one side of the street and just no parking on the other side. Or no stopping, sorry, not parking, no stopping. So that's what I would like to put forward. I understand that there is more questions of you, but my recommendation would be that we defer this item and send it back to staff to survey the residents, to give them an option whether the no parking would be, or sorry, the no stopping would be on the north side or the south side of Commonwealth Street. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. We will take your deferral right after this one last question from Councillor Fernandez, and then we'll take
Thank you.
action.
Mr. Riedman, is there any other access to the school off of, I don't see the street name on this map. It's the next street south of Max Becker on my map.
Through the chair, that's Commonwealth Crescent as well, so that loops around. It's Commonwealth Crescent on the east side, so you'll notice the north arrow is in the top right corner of the map.
There it is, okay.
So on the east side it's Commonwealth Crescent, and then it's Commonwealth Crescent again.
Because it says Isabella Street, and then it says Commonwealth Crescent, Commonwealth Street, and then there's no name on the one, so that's Commonwealth Crescent as well?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there is this an entrance where I see sort of this Y-shaped location?
Through the chair, that's my understanding.
Okay. And where's the entrance to the school from the street then? Where that Y dotted line is?
Through the chair, the front of the school would be on the unlabeled Commonwealth Crescent portion.
Okay, so that's the front. Okay. All right. Do they have a one of those drive in and drive out? No. Okay. And what is our parking situation on the front of the school? Is there parking allowed in the front of the school or stopping allowed in the front of the school?
There's no parking allowed in front of the school. It's for school bus parking only.
Okay. all right. And how far of a walk would you say it would be from that trail to the corner of Commonwealth, and the no-name street right now, roughly?
Through the chair, approximately 100 meters, 200 meters maybe.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with my line of questioning is this has been such an ongoing problem. I mean, it's in every single ward. It's in every single at every single school where we've got cars backed up forever and ever, and children are at risk every single day because for whatever reason, parents are choosing to drive their children to school, and it's creating a huge backlog. And I would certainly continue supporting no parking right up until the trail. I mean, I could see parking happening past the trail, but up to the trail, I definitely would support no parking, no stopping at all. That's not a long distance to walk, and I think it really would at least alleviate a little bit of that congestion. Would that be correct, Mr. Reedman? Would that be a correct assumption to make?
Through the chair, yes. If we were looking at having some parking on that side of the street and no parking on the other side of the street, that would greatly limit the amount of cars that would be able to drop off children at school. So,
okay, all right. I mean, I'll defer to the deferral from the ward councillor, but that would be my strong recommendation: is to keep no parking, no stopping on both sides of Commonwealth Street up to the trail, and past the trail. I think I could see that that's a little bit longer of a walk if you've got a JK or SK, if you have to park. But we need to keep that corner in that front of that school, which already is no parking, no stopping, free and clear for the safety of our students.
Okay. With that, Councillor Galloway, do you have a date and time? Because our next standing committee would be August 11th from what I'm looking at here. Is that when you want to see the deferral to? Or you want to ask staff? Okay.
So if we go back and survey the residents, it shouldn't be a problem to come back to the August 11th committee day, I would assume. Would that give us enough time to install whatever came out of that decision before school starts? Because I think it's really important for us to have this implemented at the beginning of the school year. Even if it had to come to special council on the 11th of August, in order to give that couple weeks time for installation of signs.
Oh, you shut yourself off, sorry.
through the chair, that should be enough time as long as we get responses from the residents in time, but from the operations side of thing, we can make it a priority to install signs in that window.
Okay, so that would be my recommendation, that it comes back to, I guess, special council then on August the 11th. Again, that we survey the residents with either having the north side or the south side looked at as the opportunity for no parking, and potentially if there's no parking. The problem is no matter what street you're on in this area, it's crazy during school time. And so it's about safety. People park on the other side of Max Becker. They park everywhere. So it's a matter of picking the safest routes. People are going to walk regardless. They don't mind parking further away. It's about picking what's right and picking the safest route for the kids. So I think it's important that we survey the residents to give them more options this time around. So that's why the deferral to August 11th with the direction to ask staff to survey the residents on Commonwealth Street, that section of Commonwealth Street, and come back.
Okay. We don't have no further questions, so all those in favor of the deferral? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, we have the next item up, which is item number 6, consent item, and that's dealing with the bicycle lane installation on Battler Road, Dune Mills Drive, and Eckert Street. And we have, I guess Justin will be providing the staff's report. Go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
Thank you. So the recommendation before you is the installation of bicycle lanes on Battler Road between Strasbourg Road and Huron Road, as well as Eckert Street from Dixon Drive to First Avenue Drive. You'll notice we've removed Dune Mills from the report. It is in the title, but that is undergoing a traffic calming review, and we're incorporating any bike lane recommendations into that review. So these two roadways were identified in the cycling master plan as bicycle lanes for installation. Eckert Street has no properties fronting onto that street, and Battler Road has two properties fronting on. We've reviewed those properties, and they have a significant amount of off-street parking located at their locations. So we would be restricting on-street parking at each of those sites and consulting with the owners on the property before the install.
Okay, thank you, Justin. We do have a delegation registered for this item. Mr. Duncan Class. Thank you, Duncan, for coming. And I do understand you want to speak on the 4 items regarding with cycling. So I will give you a few extra minutes to talk about those items as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just realized there's no monitor here. I think the last time I spoke, I had my laptop here to refer to. Hopefully I can read the lines from up there. I'm sorry? My name's Duncan Class. I'm a resident in Kitchener. I'm a cyclist and a motorist. I'd like to speak on all 4 of the cycling reports and projects that you're going to be talking about today. I've listed them there, and thank you for an extra minute or 2. First, I'd like to talk about the downtown bike lanes, bike routes. Kitchener has 16 community centers, so therefore we have at least 16 community areas in the city. The downtown is only one of those 16 community areas, yet at least 40% of the present cycling projects have been in the downtown area. Why? Staff, not the city's cycling advisory committee, have created extra cycling projects in the downtown area. I think we should stop focusing on the downtown. It's only one of 16 communities. The priority is to make the connections across the city so cyclists can safely and easily cycle throughout the city, not just downtown. Please stop ignoring the suburbs. There are 10 times more cyclists in the suburbs than there are in the city, and too many times cyclists cannot get downtown or across to other communities safely or easily. This week, Council is going to be doing their fact-finding councillors' ride with the Cycling Advisory Committee. I'd like you to note the good things and the bad things. You'll find many interesting things on this ride. I was on the Cycle Advisory Committee for 2 rides with you. Please remember, unlike motorists, cyclists do not have 200 horsepower. They don't have 4 wheels for stability, and they don't have 2 tons of steel surrounding them for protection. So be careful and enjoy your ride. The Nyberg Street counterflow bike lane. This project is long overdue. We had a 2-year delay from when the Cycling Advisory Committee first presented this to Council. It's now hopefully going forward this year. It will provide more safety for cyclists on a one-way street. The next report is about e-bikes and bylaws. There are a number of types of e-bikes and e-scooters. There's 2-wheel, 3-wheel, and 4-wheel. And there's add-on e-kits for regular bicycles. If you say e-bike, everybody thinks of this photograph of a 2-wheeled scooter. It's a generic type of thought. It's silent, although it does have a horn. Its wheels are 16 to 20 inches, depending on the manufacturer. Its top speed is regulated at 32 kilometers per hour. It weighs anywhere from 75 to 100 pounds, and it's very maneuverable. Generic seniors mobility e-scooters have actually been around longer than the e-scooter that we are now seeing on the streets. They're 3 and 4 wheels. They're silent, they have a horn. Their wheels are only 6 to 8 inches in diameter, and their top speed is only 8 to 12 kilometers. They still weigh around 75 to 100 pounds, and they are very maneuverable. Seniors in the challenge have benefited for years with these mobility e-scooters. Also wheelchairs, powered wheelchairs. Improvements in battery technology have provided new models for the seniors and the challenge to upgrade to, and many of them are doing that. This is a capable of 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, not 12 kilometers per hour. It weighs roughly the same. There's also the add-on e-kit for bicycles. I have one. It makes traveling long distance very easily, takes the edge off, and you still get good exercise. It's rated at 32 kilometers per hour. Under the Highway Traffic Act, you can't get an e-assist any faster than that. If you can pedal faster than that, the assist cuts off, so you don't get the assist when you're pedaling. So there are cyclists that have this kit on the bike, and they're capable of doing 40 and 50 kilometers an hour pedaling on their own. The kit only weighs 15 to 25 pounds when you add it to the bike. Recommendation is the problem is not the technology, it's the driver's attitude. And the e-bikes, the e-scooters, the e-bicycles with the add-on kit, and the seniors mobility e-scooters should include some provision to allow the seniors and the challenged to use these mobility devices on sidewalks, on trails, and in the bike lanes. I normally cycle between 15 and 25 kilometers an hour, and the new e-bikes for seniors are doing 20 to 25 kilometers an hour. So there's no trouble with integrating them at the same speed as cyclists. The bike lanes on Battler Road and Eckert Street. You'll see the white oval circle for Battler Road. It isn't completely shown there, but that's the area where the bike lanes are going to be added. That's part of the report. Unfortunately, there's another block of Battler between Huron Road and Bean Drive, circled in yellow. It's not getting bike lanes in the report. It's only 100 meters, and I'd like to see it finished. Why don't you finish the job? Don't do half a job, okay? There's no reason not to finish the one block. It's a wide road. There's a lot of traffic comes out of there from the residents, and the buses use that one block to get up to Huron Road. And I think the cyclists would feel a lot safer by having a bike lane on either side for that area.
Mr. Duncan, can you please hurry up, please?
Yes, I've only got a couple slides left. This is a photograph of that one block area with measurements. To the left, Bean Drive ends 100 yards, so there's no real reason for two turn lanes there. You can have a wide single lane and make the turns and still put in the bike lanes. Eckert Street, it runs between Dixon and under the expressway for one block. This is a primary passageway under the expressway to get across from one side to the other. As you can see here, the trail, the Stone Dust Trail, is clear, and this was before the Eckert Street curb cut was put in a couple years ago. You can see on the right side that there is, for a long time, there's been a paved trail with a chain across at the far end to prevent cars from going through. you'll notice that there's barriers across the grass. However, since they put the Eckert Street curb cut in, which was a precursor to putting the bike lanes on, we now have barriers on the trail. They moved them from the grass and over to block the trail. We don't, we've opened the gates on the trails now, and yet we have staff putting barriers on the trail. These are sharp edge metal pieces. They're not the round gates that don't have sharp edges. So this is a dangerous situation. Here's the curb cut that was put in, and I've drawn in the bike lane line here on the pavement for you to see. This is a little slope down from Connaught Place to the new pavement, and we're already getting washout stone dust down on the new pavement, and this is just like riding on marbles if you're cycling through here, and to try and get through the barriers, it's dangerous. Please take the barriers out, and it's only 3 meters up to the curb. We could pave that with no trouble at all and eliminate the washout and the danger from the riding on the stones. There are no signs indicating that the bike route turns right onto the trail here. The Cycling Master Plan pilot sign project is said to be complete, yet the route from the bottom of the Yarn Horse Trail on Ottawa Street down to the Highway 401 pedestrian bridge, it makes 17 direction changes, and there isn't one bike route sign showing you a change of direction. What is needed is the bike route sign for wayfinding so that cyclists can find their way. We do it for motorists. I can't understand why we're not doing it for cyclists. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We have a question for you, Councillor Fernandez.
Hi, Duncan. Thanks so much for your all the work that you always do, and such detailed presentation that you made. And I apologize, we didn't get a chance to meet up before to see this. Is it possible to go back to the some of the slides in any way?
Which one would you like?
Go back to the Eckert Street, the original Eckert Street. Sorry, yeah, that one right there. That's good. So what I'm seeing here, and I guess that maybe if you can't answer it from your perspective, staff will be able to answer it. So we now have what looks to me like two entrances here. We've got the Stone Dust Trail and we've got the paved area. So the paved area, from what you're telling us, has been removed, and the stone dust is now paved up to a certain point. Is that correct?
No. The pavement that you see on the right side of the screen was probably put in when the cul-de-sac Connaught Place was put in. There's a curb cut that runs from just below the photograph all the way around to just to the right side of the photograph. That includes the trail and that paved section. I'm assuming the city put that paved piece in with the chain and the posts on there as kind of an emergency access to the cul-de-sac from Eckert Street in case they couldn't get through at the other end. This trail here from Eckert Street that you see on the left side, the Stone Dust Trail, it actually goes from Eckert Street here all the way over to Cortland. Okay, I call it the Shelley Drive Trail because there's no name for it, but it parallels Shelley Drive for about 80% of its length. So that's why I call it the Shelley Drive Trail. So this is just the eastern end of that trail.
Okay, and can you go up, advance this one? Okay, so that's what they did. What staff did do is that they did pave that little portion, and then they put these little barricades up.
Yeah, when the curb cut was put in a couple years ago, they put the pavement in as well, and it looks like they've moved the barriers, those stake barriers, from off the grass to the into the trail portion of the center of the trail, and these are sharp-edged pieces of 4-inch diamond-shaped metal with reflective tape on them, and they're real sharp-edged. They're not like the round gates, the trail gates that we've now opened. So you clip your arm on that, or you fall against it, you're going to have a good laceration. I can't understand why, as I've showed you here, before the curb cut went in, and then after we've got this obstruction, it's compromising the process of what we want to do here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for bringing these pictures in, and I agree with you. We should be extending that little piece of Battler. That was one of my questions to staff as well. So thanks for raising it from a public's perspective as well. Thank you.
Okay, we have no... Councillor Galloway, Seelock.
Yeah, just with regards to Battler, is there another way to get to Bean Drive if you don't go down that second section of Battler? Are you able to go on Huron Road down the trail and then get to Bean Drive?
No, that Bean Drive only connects to Huron Road through Battler, that one block of Battler.
There's also a trail there that you can...
There's a trail, it's about 212 meters or so from this intersection to the right of the photograph.
You have it in one of your pictures if you want to keep scrolling.
I'm sorry?
Through. You do have it in one of your pictures if you want to scroll through backwards. It was... Yeah, so if you were on the section of Battler and then you were to take Huron Road down towards Bean Drive, there's a trail.
Yeah, it's in the top right corner there.
Right-hand corner.
Yeah. But there's no bike lanes on Huron Road.
Right, but I believe that can be a question I can ask the staff, but I believe that we are putting those in this year, a multi-use trail, continuing that along that stretch. So there may be a bike piece coming in, but I'll ask staff to confirm that piece.
Okay.
Mr. Redmond, can you confirm that?
It isn't. That's all my questions of Mr. Class. So
Okay, do you move the consent item? No, there is no further questions. Okay, you're not. Mr. Class is still here until he's finished. Then I'll ask questions of staff. Well, thank you, Mr. Class. We have no further questions for you.
Okay.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. So just further to Mr. Class's presentation, why have we not considered going that extra 100 meters along Battler? And my question was as well, I know that we are completing up on Huron Road. I wasn't sure if we were completing up to Battler or we were completing up to the stoplights with the bike lanes. I just need a little bit clearer understanding of where we are on that. Can we leave the map up, Diana? Sorry.
Mr. Joseph?
Through the chair, I'd have to confirm the date for the Huron Road extension, but my understanding is that the segment on Battler Road that's highlighted in the yellow is a little bit more complicated with the turning movements and the lane designations. So we looked at this as a quick win to install the first section this year with our existing cycling budget that we have in the capital account. And then we'd have to do additional design work on the Battler Road extension, that 100-meter section because of the left turns, and we'd have to work with the region on potentially repurposing some of those turning lanes to allow room for a bike lane.
Okay, but there is nothing on the, let's just say, for lack of directional indication here, on the far side of Battler Road where the stormwater pond is, there's no parking there, there's no residents there. I mean, I know we don't want to have people crossing over to a bike lane, but certainly we could have something along that stretch, so that because there is a lot of high school students who travel down Huron Road, use Battler Road, and use Old Huron. So if at least we offered them a cycling connection there, we would hopefully stop them from needing to walk all the way up Huron Road and then taking that little tiny trail. So can we first clarify if we're going from Battler all the way up to the trail where the stoplights is, which is the top of this picture, with our multi-use pathway this year? Because I thought we were only going to Battler.
Through the chair, I'd have to confirm that with engineering staff. But there are challenges associated with that segment of Battler Road. We'd have to work with the region on potentially repurposing some of those lanes because they have queuing models for the signalized intersection that's located at Huron Road and Battler Road. So if we would have to look at repurposing the right turn lane or eliminating a left turn lane and making that a shared through lane to accommodate cycling facilities at this point in time. And our intent was to achieve a quick win by doing that first segment this year with part of our cycling budget.
Okay, and I understand that. I think it's great that we're going for a quick win, but I guess it begs the question: why not go further? You've answered that, and I'll leave it at that. The other question, no, I think that was the only other question. And you're going to confirm for me the Battler to the stoplights for multi-use pathway.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, right. So then I will move this this report.
Okay.
Since it's mainly in my ward.
Okay. All those in favor? All those in favor? Hands up. Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Anyways, I see that we have some representatives from the Kitchener Rangers, and I know that they are here. They're here on a limited. I'm going to skip that. I'm the chair. I will decide what moves. So with that, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go move to item number 9 so that we can deal with this delegation, or what if they have any questions, and then from there we will move to consent item number 8. And Kim Kugler will be presenting. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I am here today just to bring forward a report. In 2002, the city did partner with the Kitchener Rangers to install the video score clock that resides at the Odd. The original company that provided us with that video display portion is no longer in business, and there is no one to service, repair, or provide replacement parts for that existing system. To avoid having the video score clock unavailable during the 2014-15 season, the Kitchener Rangers have investigated options for replacing the existing system as well as costing that. The cost to replace the system is over $1.4 million, and the city has been asked to contribute $357,875, which equates to the 25% of the cost, and which is also similar to our current revenue share. We split 75-25 on current revenues. If the grant was approved, if today the approval is granted for the city to contribute $357,875, then these funds would be advanced from the KMAX site upgrading capital. The initial payment would put this account into a deficit position until funding was replenished from future capital and reserve transfers. The capital would be replenished in 2017. In addition to the 75% being contributed by the Kitchener Rangers, they're also willing to add additional dollars to replacing our backlit advertising panels in the Odd, and it would convert to a ribbon board or a video screen, as well as a donation that would be made of $200,000 towards replacing the existing sound system, for a total commitment on their behalf of $1.6 million. Funding this project is important to the city to ensure that we have reliable video scoreboard for the upcoming season and to maintain our current revenue share. The city also benefits from the installation of the new sound system for our customers and the replacement of the static backlit advertising panels, which have always been expensive and often have deterred any future tenants from joining the facility or event organizers from hosting events at the Odd due to the additional costs of covering and trying to deal with that static boards. The Kitchener Rangers are here today, represented with their COO and their president, for any questions, or I'm also here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Kugler. We do have a few questions. Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I have a few questions of staff. When was this last done? You mentioned that 2002, was it?
2002.
Yeah, and we gave 25%, is that right?
In 2002, we actually did do 25%, and we also did a loan at that time, and the loan was 100% paid back.
And we gave 25%.
Correct.
On top of that, yeah. When were we going to replace the sound system?
We had dollars starting in our capital in 2017.
So why are we replacing it now?
As part of the enhancement with the new video, while they're up there placing all of the pieces, it makes sense because we'd have to repurpose all of the sound in the speaker system with the changes to the video clock and the advertisement. So it's a perfect time to tie in the project and create some cost savings.
It's a perfect time if you got the money. What did we have in our 2017 capital forecast for that sound system?
For the sound system, we had identified $80,000.
Period?
Correct, and then we had another $150,000 because we also have sound components throughout the facility, so a combination of which we would have phased in.
So what happens to those other sound systems?
The $150,000 is still further out in the capital forecast to deal with tying into the existing entities in the twin pads in the back and the main corridor that feeds between the Dom Cardillo Arena, Kinsman, and Kiwanis.
Why wasn't all of this not brought forward in our capital budget last year?
The attention to what has occurred is actually due to an incident that occurred with Kingston, and they actually did lose their system throughout their hockey season. And through that time period, they reached out to a number of the facilities that were on the same system to find out what parts were available, and at that time was when they found out the company that supplied was out of business. So it's all fairly new information, and we're responding to that, so we're not caught in the same situation as Kingston was.
Can you explain to me how this revenue system works? Do we get 25% of the revenue off of the big clock?
Correct. So when the new clock was put in, the costs related to maintaining and operating the system come off the top, and then the city benefits from the new revenues generated from the clock.
And you talk about another ribbon clock and all of that. What is all that?
Okay. So the new ribbon board is, when you go into the Dom Cardillo Arena and you look higher up into the facility, beyond any height where staff can actually work at, we have to bring in lifts to replace any of those ad panels. So currently they're all static and they're backlit. When another event comes in or an organizer comes in, for them to actually cover that advertising and then put a new advertiser up, there's extensive cost in doing that. To give you an example, when we just did the curling event, it was a cost of almost $35,000 in their operating budget for that covering.
And then who had to pay for that?
It was part of what was budgeted within their budget, but it does deter other events from being profitable, and that's why, unless it's an event with large ticket revenue, sometimes we don't secure some of those events.
And you talk here about we're going to get $20,000 to $100,000 from new tenants. Did we get an NBA team? Or?
So to explain that is, traditionally when we've had approaches from whether it's been you'll see in Oshawa in London, they actually have an NBL kind of basketball league that's going on, and they also have a lacrosse league. When both organizations came to look at Kitchener as potential for a tenant, it was very difficult for any owner to put together a business case to bring them to the facility, because by the time they paid to cover that advertising every event and then take it down, they actually had to take out of their operating budget almost $100,000. So the dollars really go towards helping that business case for a future tenant, and also help us because then we have another event night, more food and beverage, and employment nights as well.
Mr. Gozzola, do you have any further questions?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Who gets to use the big score clock?
Sorry, can you please ask that question?
Who gets to use this $1.5 million score clock we're talking about?
So traditionally, anyone that would like to rent that clock, it's been available to them. So we have used it at a number of events, whether they've been at a level with Kitchener Minor Hockey. We've had the ladies PWHL receive benefits of that. The cheerleading organization, when they bring in their cheer event, they tie into that clock. When we did the curling event, they also tied into the video clock, and when we've done Skate Canada events.
But on an average year, what percentage would the Rangers use it, and what percentage would everybody else use?
Probably pretty close to our revenue split of 75-25.
Thank you.
Councillor Verbanovich?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the presentation, Kim. I'm not sure if these are questions you want to answer or if it's a question that representatives from the Rangers can answer. We've had a long history of partnership with the Rangers. This has been one piece of it, but it's also included a number of additions to our building, which have added to the value of our municipal asset. I'm wondering if you can just refresh all of our memories on that, because some of them I know happened before the current council existed.
Okay, so through you, Chair, I will go through them, and if I've missed any, I'll look to Steve. But in my tenure, for sure, the Kitchener Rangers have been a partner on adding their own addition to the side of the building, which included their dressing room and office space, and I believe that was about 1997. Then we did another expansion in 2002. We did an additional expansion in 2008, and then just did the recent one in 2012. In addition to that, they have been partners on our video score system. They've also been partners on graphics and signage throughout the facility that have improved our experiences for our customers. They have participated in some enhancements for the Winter Rinks program. They have taken a loan that was part of a contribution that was made to the Waterloo Boxing Academy related to Activa. And I can say, I probably haven't hit them all, Steve, but I can say that they are in good standing with all of their projects. Currently, they have made their interest payment on the 2012, and they also have made their payment on the dehumidification that we did in 2012 as well.
Great. And these additions that have been made available have not only benefited their own customer base or fan base, but have really made the facility more viable for others who, whether it's concerts or whether it's rentals like we had this past weekend, which I think was the first of a number of weekends with the Jehovah Witness and others. It's created a much more viable facility, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to move this when the time comes.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can move it, no problem. Councillor Glenn Gunnar. What's that? He's left. Okay. Mayor Zare?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for Kim. I had communication with Kim last week, I think it was, just getting some clarification on this report. And if I understand this correctly, I was trying to look at calculate sort of a payback, potentially. And on an annual basis, then the video clock advertisement would yield between $10,000 and $15,000. I think that the report is pretty clear. The ribbon board, in your email to me, and this isn't, I don't think it's in the report, talked about the potential of about $3,500. There might be 10 times that we would have events there that we now are not getting, and that it would be that's revenue, a rent revenue of about $3,500 per, so $35,000 a year. Is that reasonable?
Correct. So what Mayor Zare is talking about is that our ability, if we were able to secure events, because they can actually put together a business plan or the budget to operate and utilize that video ribbon board, that now gives them the ability to change sponsors and have an opportunity for a revenue source. That means that we could potentially book an additional evening and just at straight cost without recovering staff time or the others, the rent is approximately $3,500.
Okay. And then the sound system was, if I remember correctly, 20 ribbon, no, not the ribbon board. I had in my calculation here $20,000 for the sound system. Oh, I know what it was. The last paragraph before the alignment phrase in 9.2 talked about a $200,000 donation towards the sound system. So just for council's information, what I had done is to put those figures into the annual calculation and saying that over a 10-year period, what would be the maximum that we could get. And I want to check this with Kim if my math is correct. So the video is 10 to 15,000 per year, so it's 100 to 150,000 over a 10-year period. The ribbon board, about 35,000 annually potential, 350,000 over 10 years, and the sound system donation 200,000, and I just arbitrarily put it into the 10-year time frame because that's the calculation I was using. So that's $650,000 to $700,000 over a 10-year period. Does that sound reasonable?
Your numbers sound reasonable, yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, your numbers sound reasonable.
Okay. Thank you. That's the question. I have a comment.
You have a comment? Okay. You want to make your comment now?
Well, I can, if there are no more questions.
Well, I'll put you in after. Thank you. Councillor Len Graham.
Thanks very much. I just had a question about the financial implications and the source of funding. It just talks about the transfers, and I was wondering whether that would be done at budget time or how that is accomplished.
Mr. Haggie?
Through the chair, we would amend the 2015 budget based on the direction that council would give today if it's approved, and essentially the budget for the KMAC site upgrading account would increase by $75,000 in each of those 3 years. Okay. And in 2017, the $80,000 would move from that sound system line up to KMAC site upgrading.
Thanks. And perhaps, Mr. May, if you could just let me know whether this would provide us with an additional way to market our advertising based on our sponsorship and advertising policy. Was this part of the consideration when you had that initial thought, or is this new information and a possible additional source of revenue?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we already have an agreement with the Rangers that was not considered when we were doing the calculation on sponsorship because the sponsorship strategy was above and beyond what was existing. So we would say that this is part of our existing inventory of sponsorships, which is separate from the strategy.
Thank you. So this just continues to enable that to go forward and would make it more attractive potentially to lease out the odd 2 new teams.
That's correct.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Fernandez, are you a question or a comment? Question. Go ahead.
This may have been asked when I stepped out, and I apologize if it was. In the report, Kim, you allude to business case for new tenants considering the odd for basketball or lacrosse. And what I'm reading here is the ribbon board. Okay, so how many new tenants have we had approach us, or have we had new tenants approach us for that?
Okay. So through you, Chair. Yes, we have been approached by other basketball and by lacrosse organizations looking to find an owner to bring a team to Kitchener. And one of the challenges that they've had is that to advertise in our building, because they're not in there consistently 10 days in a row or 20 days in a row, they actually have to physically bring in a lift to cover the advertising and then take it down, put up their advertising. And those costs are prohibitive when they're trying to come in just for a couple of hours. This new technology will actually allow us to black out, change, or add. There obviously will have to be some rental costs for it, but they will be much reduced compared to what it's costing them in man hours and equipment to do that now.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I apologize. I figured it had been asked, but I just wanted to make sure I understood. Is there? I understand the rationale for all of these different pieces coming together, because it would make a total package. But is there an item, for example, if we took out the ribbon board, would we be able to continue with the other two components to the project?
So just to go back in the report, actually the only contribution we're being asked to make is a contribution towards the video score clock. So
Right.
we're just being asked for 25% of that 1.4.
Which is the 338,000.
Correct,
Right.
357. So the hockey club themselves have made that commitment to their customers from a point of making the whole experience much more improved, and they're tying and bringing those dollars together. So we wouldn't be if we were taking something out, we would be probably reducing our share of the advertising revenue, and we would probably be looking at incurring more costs for the potential other tenants because we'd lose some of that control.
Right, yeah, and that's why I was kind of asking if there was a tie-in with that. Sorry, I quoted the wrong number. You're correct. It was the 357,875. That is our contribution. Okay, and I heard as I stepped out, the reason that we're fixing the video score clock, is because we no longer can access the company to repair.
That is correct. Repair, replace, or service.
Okay, so right now it's not functioning at all?
Ours is working, but we don't want to take the chance that it goes down in the middle of a game or the season.
Okay, and so did it go down during any of the Ranger season or any of the times?
We had some hiccups with some of the screens through, and we still at that point had some backup spare parts. The hockey club was wise enough to store some of those early, and we actually helped out some others as well, and we've kind of have exhausted those lucky, whatever the...
Backup,
yeah,
right?
The pot of gold is gone, or the... Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Verbanovich, you can move the motion.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move the motion that's before us. I think the city's been very fortunate to have the kind of partnership that we do with the Kitchener Rangers. They have, over certainly my time on council, been an incredible community partner, and much longer than that, quite frankly. They have made significant investments in our facility, which not only benefits their fan base, but the entire community. And this is just part of the necessary ongoing investment that's part of a piece of infrastructure that we jointly own and are fortunate enough to have someone to come forward and actually pay for part of the bill that goes with it. So I would move it and ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote's been called. So next up for comment is Mayor Zaire.
Thanks very much. Just briefly, I had, in my question, I laid out basically the figures that I had, and for a $357,000 investment, which we would be making at this point in time, the payback is potentially twice that amount in 10 years' time. And so even if my calculations are off by 50%, the risk is extremely low. And obviously, we get assured that we have some equipment that is working, and so I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Glenn Graham.
Thanks very much. And I just wanted to ask Ms. Kugler if the revenues from 2002 have been steady stream, about the same amount of 10 to 15,000 a year.
Through you, Chair. Yes, they have. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am supportive, of course, of this, and it's not just because the Rangers are a good community partner, it's because the Rangers have offered a good business case to us, and I think that the fact that we're going to have a return on investment is positive. We support a lot of cultural venues, and we don't get a return on investment. I think this one is obviously where we do have a lot of sports fans that do appreciate the quality of our venue. And since we're living with this for at least the next 15 years, I think it does definitely behoove us to improve it to a high quality and standard. So I will be supportive of this.
Thank you. I will be supporting the motion as well. I think it's a no-brainer in the aspects when it comes to an investment, but not only with such a tremendous community partner as the Kitchener Rangers. They're truly a world-class organization, and for me, the kicker is the future possibilities of adding new tenants to the building. And to me, that is, I think, would be the most paramount success if we're able to attract another tenant and creating more vitality in our community. And with that, we have a recorded vote. Yep. Oh. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Certainly, we've always, the community at large has always been quite supportive and very keen on Kitchener Rangers and all that they've done. We see them at lots of activities throughout the community, and I think Kitchener and Kitchener Rangers are pretty synonymous in many communities. I think that this is a bit of a proactive view for replacing the clock and having some add-ons. You can always spin anything over a 10-year forecast to make it look good if you wish to. So I think that I'll support this because I think that we're being a little bit proactive and we're looking at some possible new partnerships. But it is our facility, and I think it is something that we need to be making decisions on without feeling the pressure from outside community members.
Councillor Gazzola.
I really wasn't going to say anything because to try to speak against the Kitchener Rangers in the city of Kitchener is futile. But I think there are many sides to all of these stories. I appreciate what the Rangers have done for this community, and that's well understood. But quite frankly, and I think they're a very successful organization and very successful financially. That the time now, if I were in their shoes, I don't blame them for coming here to hat in hand to ask. I've never seen a group come before when they have all kinds of salesmen right around their council chambers who are totally prepared to support them. I do question some of the payback. I do question this is something we hadn't planned on doing, and every time this comes up in the past, we get a lot of all of a sudden fiscally responsible people who argue about bringing something new to the table. That's what this is. We should have discussed this when we discussed our capital forecast. I don't understand the total implications of the $200,000 sound system. We were going to put in a $80,000 sound system. Now it's a $200,000 sound system. It sounds to me like the $120,000 is part of the clock or what have you. There are two sides to these issues, and I really wasn't going to say something until I heard that comment, which I despise, a no-brainer. I obviously have no brain because I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Sorry, I also had no intentions of making comments because I think that this is important to move forward. I think there's something missing here in some of the comments that are being said. Staff are bringing forward this recommendation. Staff have looked at this, and staff are bringing forward their professional recommendation, which will help our facility move forward. This is a $1.6 million investment, and we only have to pay $357,000. Good deal.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'll be brief as well. While I certainly agree with the sentiment that this should be coming at budget time. I will be supporting it simply because there is a potential payback, as has been noted, and more importantly, because this organization has not let us down remotely in any way, shape, or form ever. They have not ever come with us with any sort of financial issues. And in fact, the most recent dealings we had with them with the expansion of the facility was one that I'm still somewhat annoyed at how it got communicated, because it was one that was not at all in the backs of the taxpayers and in fact made the city of Kitchener money. And there are people that voted against that factor as well, and we haven't seen any issues come out of that. And the results of that partnership are that we are actually offsetting taxes. So I am more than happy to support this particular investment.
Go ahead, Mr. Management. I'm not sure what you...
Sorry, I apologize to come back, but I do think that some comments have been made towards the Rangers, and I guess like to ask Mr. Biankowski if he wants to make any comments, particularly on the issue about hat in hand and so on, because I don't sense that that's the way this all came about, and so I think it's important that get cleared up.
Go ahead, Mr. Biankowski.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. I just want to clarify, because I'm not sure we got the message through. The process here was we started having trouble with the clock, and as did Kingston. London's already replaced theirs. So in March, the Rangers were proactive, at no time wanting to come to the city and ask for money. So we did our due diligence, found a solution. The thing we had to protect is a couple of things. One is our game night experience, and the second is it takes about 20 months from start to installation. So if something happened during the season, we had a major problem, which meant protecting the revenue that we currently have on the score clock plus future. So at that point, we went to staff and indicated that we'd like to move forward. In other words, we would do 100% of it on our dime, no hat in hand. And we gave that choice to staff, but realized it probably didn't make a lot of sense for you to have one of your tenants control 100% of your score clock facilities in a municipal building. Right? So in theory, anyone who came in would have to ask us to turn it on, which didn't make sense. So we went back to the partnership, and that's where the 357. But to clarify it, we're spending $1.9 million. It's 1.717 for the score clock and the ribbon boards, plus we're willing to put in a new sound system. The $200,000 for the sound system is basically the experts we brought in wanted to provide people in the building with the same quality of sound in every seat, no matter where they sit. And that's the cost to do it. So although you may have budgeted $80,000, you would have found in 2017 that was insufficient. Okay? So what I said to staff at the time was, we'll move ahead with the score clock, we'll move ahead with the ribbon board. If you want to partner, the money we would have spent, we'll donate that $200,000 of that back to the city for a new sound system, which hopefully would save you money down the road. And the reality is we didn't want to wait till 2017 for our fans' experience. So just want to clarify that your return, I guess you can decide how it is. Of the 357 you're putting in, we're basically giving you 200,000 back right away for a sound system that you don't have to put in a couple years down the road. So your net cost is more in the 157,000 if you want to do your return on investment calculations. The fact that the company, again, we've never had any hardware issues with that, and that's why we're comfortable with the way we're going. It's the software that is the problem, okay, and that's why we're trying to be proactive. So I just want to clarify a few things.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we have a recorded vote. All those in favor, please stand. Opposed? That's carried. So we are going to move on to consent item number 8, and I will... Councillor Glenn Graham, you want to speak to that?
Yes, I would like to bring that forward, and I would move a deferral of the youth forum until next Monday, and I would like to vote on my ideal city. I will support my ideal city as it currently stands. I think it's basically doing well and doesn't require a lot of staff time or money. The youth forum, I think, is a little bit unclear to me how it should proceed, so I think more information would be helpful. Hopefully that'll be available on the 30th.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock?
I'm just wondering what information is to be brought back. I'm sure staff are going to probably ask the same question, but what information is to be brought back for Monday?
Go ahead.
So what I asked for was that the approach could be incremental. If we do one school more, two schools more, three schools more, what the cost and staff time would be, and also other partners, any information about possible other partnerships.
Okay. Ms. McCabe, you have
Well, I just want, I mean, the cost, through you, Chair, the cost, I guess a little bit confused about the need for other partners. If it's for the funding reasons or what the reason behind that is, the costs are fairly, I mean, it's about $1,200 or $1,300 per forum, so, and Rotary certainly covers about just over half of that. So I'm not sure if you're looking for funding partners or, I mean, and in terms of volunteers, using counselors is really the draw for the students and the schools for the participation, and then we augment that with a few staff from the city. So we're actually at a point where we don't need very many more volunteers. I mean, we find it very manageable. So I'm just wondering if you could provide some more clarity on, what you're really thinking there.
Thanks very much. And you're right about the costs. I guess I was looking for the funding partners. It's not sure about whether Rotary could cover the entire additional cost in the report. So I guess clarity on that. Whether Rotary is willing to step up for the balance of the additional expansion, or if not, are there any other funding partners? If you can answer that today, great.
Through you, Chair, Rotary had talked about talking to other Rotary groups to help cover the expanded costs, not to cover the entire cost, because this is a partnership with the city and with Compass Kitchener. So we haven't asked them directly if they would cover the entire costs, but they are in conversation with other Rotary clubs, because if you expand it to the other schools, that affects other Rotary clubs throughout the city. So they're talking to them about potentially helping them fund it as well.
Yes, and I wasn't asking for them to cover the entire cost. I think the cost share is appropriate. My question would be, are the other clubs willing to step up? And since that's not clear, I'm not sure I can support it at this point.
That's the part that Rotary's still discussing amongst itself.
So I guess I would defer that until such time as we have that information. That's my recommendation on the youth forum.
If I could just add, I guess part of the challenge with deferring this too long is that we are working with the school boards, the schools' timetables, so they need some clarity from us on what's happening, because they're about to go on their summer recess. So they need an indication from the city if we're going to continue this, because starting to plan things in September really is very difficult for the teachers. So that's why we're hoping to be able to tell them now, this is what we're looking at in the fall and going into the new school system or school season.
So I'll just ask one more question. Do you have a sense of how long it would take to find out from the other Rotary clubs about whether they're interested?
At this point, no, I don't know. I mean, I could try within a week to find out. I don't know if they'd have that answer, though.
I'd be prepared to vote on it next week. I would ask that we do make an effort, though, and I would therefore defer that. I would move that we defer the youth forum for 1 week.
Okay, so you are moving a deferral. Okay, so we will take any questions on the deferral. Councillor Manovich?
Just very quickly, because I'm not clear now that I understand where things are at. I thought what this report was saying, that we're capable of expanding, and that the only thing that it was contingent on was getting 7 members of council to agree to continue this in the expanded form, which would include all of the public high schools in the region, or in Kitchener rather, and the two Catholic high schools in Kitchener. Now it's sounding like it's still contingent on not only the council involvement, but also the dollars as well.
Ms. McCabe.
As it indicates in the report, continued partnership in the recommendation that it is with continued partnership with the Rotary Club of Kitchener. That's the Rotary Club that we're currently part
No,
of.
I realize that. Okay, just from a conversation I had with you previously, it was my understanding that the only issue was council involvement. So if that's not the case, then that's fine. Let's try to get those answers for next week.
Well, sorry, just to provide some more clarification, the Rotary Club of Kitchener, and it's the current club that we're partnered with, is committed to continuing this partnership. We are looking for council to commit as well, to have a minimum of 7 councillors continue to partner with this program. We believe that we can, with our existing resources, like the City of Kitchener's, our staff time, and the Rotary Club of Kitchener's partnership, that we can grow this to all 8 secondary schools in Kitchener.
So then they are committed.
The Rotary Club of Kitchener is. They are in conversation with other Rotary clubs to see about funding, if other Rotary clubs are interested in funding, assisting with that. But the Rotary Club of Kitchener itself, the one club, is committed to this project.
So they will look after all of the funding, but if others want to come board on a...
Not all of the funding.
Well, their portion.
Their portion, yeah.
Right. But, and so the only thing they're looking to other Rotary clubs for is if they want to have their name associated with it as well, and then they would split the cost for the Rotary portion of it.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Which is, I think, different than the answer you gave to Councillor Glenn Graham earlier.
Oh, sorry if I wasn't clear. No, the Rotary Club of Kitchener is very much interested in continuing this partnership.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm confused now. So all the costs will be borne by the Rotary Club of Kitchener, and if others come on board, then they can cost share. Is that right?
Not all the costs.
So, no,
we share some of the
right.
costs, and they're
understand.
committed to their
So
costs.
their share of, I understand
Yeah.
that it's a cost share. So they're willing to put forward all the costs on their portion for all 7.
Yes.
Okay, so that's entirely different than what I understood. So then I don't need to defer it if that's the case. I'm happy to support it. It was a question mark to me about whether there was financial support for the other additional ones. And if that's there and it's a question of sorting it out later, it's not a big deal.
Rotary is supportive of the project.
Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Having participated in both of these programs and being one of the initiators with Councillor Dan Glenn Graham for My Ideal City, it's exciting to see this report and the uptake that we've had. I think it's fabulous. Mike, one question is we're talking about a minimum participation of 7 members. What would happen if we only, one of the times that we've got everything set up for the youth forum, we only had 6 or 5 councillors. I'm a little bit concerned that we're tying it into a certain number of councillors participating, because you've had successful forums with a little bit less than 7. So what would be sort of the tipping point, I guess?
Ms. McCabe.
Through the chair, the reason we put in 7 members of council, as I said before, is that having council members participate in these programs is the real draw. So we wanted to have a clear statement from you that you're absolutely committed as a council to this project. If the day of there was 5 or 6, as sometimes has in the past, we can manage that, but ideally we would like to have the majority or at least 2/3 of council participating.
And I agree with you completely. I think when I go into the classrooms every single time, it is what's happening at council and the mayors and the kind of questions that we're getting from our students. So I agree with you completely. I'm glad to hear that we would carry on if that, all of a sudden something happened and we missed a few councillors. But I think we should be committing to this. I think it's a great initiative, and it isn't just the students that learn from this, and especially with the Ideal City, we get the parents here. And I mean, what better way to get families and parents and voters into City Hall for something that's not a controversial issue, something that's a positive issue. So I think it's great. And you know what? If we can figure out a way to get some more financial support, then I'll go out and drum it up if I have to. But thank you very much for the support on both of these.
Mayor Zaire?
Thanks very much. I was going to be speaking to the deferral, but that's off the table now because I thought it was very fairly clear. I have been involved with it, so maybe it was just from my other knowledge. The last explanation is that the commitment is there. In the case of the members of council, it is stating that we would like to have 7. The difficulty is that some people have committed to doing it, stated they would be doing it, and save and except for extenuating circumstances. I get that totally. But then do not participate, and that's where it becomes difficult. And so to say, in order to make this work, you should have at least 7 members of council, because it's the members of council that, I think someone else had mentioned it earlier on, it makes it interesting for the students. And in terms of the partnership with the Rotary Club, it already is stated that it was contingent upon their partnership. So how they work that out is up to them. And so there was no reason for deferral, and I would be supporting this as is. Time is of the essence in order to get this set up for next year.
Okay. We have no further questions. I will be supportive of this as well, and I think, I know I've mentioned this a few times, that this is the best way to get voter engagement out there, is to educate our youth, and no better than having students engage with counselors in their classrooms and at City Hall than to get that voter turnout. Recorded vote has been called for. Pardon me? Do we have Councillor Fernandez? It's recorded vote. That's been carried unanimously. The next item up on the agenda is neighborhood matching fund grants, and that's being introduced by Mark Hildebrand. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Council directed staff to look at a better way of utilizing the Community Assistant Loan Program. The reserve is currently overfunded and has been there hasn't been a lot of activity within the fund over the past number of years. The current balance is approximately $838,000, which is $338,000 over the program target of $500,000. The staff report forwarded 2 suggestions to deal with the fund. First, developing an extensive communications plan to better utilize the existing program into the future. And second, staff suggests looking at using a small part of the reserves as a funding source for a neighborhood matching fund grant program, piloting for 3 years. A number of matching fund grant programs across Canada and the United States was researched, Seattle's program with Jim Deers being the most well-known, likely in North America. And some members of council might remember that Jim Deers was a keynote speaker at the Community Programs and Policy Conference held by Tamarack in Victoria Park last year. He explained at this conference how a neighborhood matching fund program was an important tool in animating neighborhoods at a very local level. Research showed that the complexity and size of various grant programs, and I'm referring to the application process and the size of the grant, varied significantly from municipality to municipality. Some being relatively a simple process with small amounts for grassroots groups, to being quite complex applications and funding significant programs or projects that could deal with small infrastructure items. The size of the program being suggested by staff is smaller for smaller place-based grassroots initiatives with a relatively simple application. The United Way of Kitchener-Waterloo, who is also interested at developing capacity at very local level, has agreed to match City of Kitchener's amount of $10,000 over 3 years if this is approved. This, in effect, would mean that for every dollar spent by the City of Kitchener, 2 more dollars would be leveraged, one from the United Way in funding and also one from the community. So in summary of the grant program, it's proposed to be a one-time matching funds grant for neighborhood and place-based initiatives, so it's not citywide initiatives. Applicants can leverage their own funds, time, materials, in-kind hours with the grant request. Applicants can be members who form a committee just for the purpose of the project or event. It can be a capital project or an event. They must show neighborhood support and involvement. The request can range from $500 to $5,000. The upset limit is $20,000 per year for the first 3 years of the project. And the grant would be administered throughout the year, given resource availability, and would be administered by a committee made up of staff from community programs and services, members of Safe and Healthy, and a member of the United Way, KW. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Mr. Hildebrand. We do have a few questions for you. Councillor Verbanovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the report, Mr. Hildebrand. This is certainly exciting to see. I think it was something that I sat in on a Safe and Healthy Community Advisory Committee and heard the presentation on this. The one question I have is I see that the request can range from $500 to $5,000. When you say an upset limit of $20,000 per year for the 3 years of the fund, is that for like any one group, or it's not clear what that refers to.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to clarify, it would be a maximum of $20,000 that would be given out to groups per year. The upset limit for an individual group to get would be $5,000.
For any one project or in any 1 year? For a single group?
In 1 year, for any project and in 1 year.
Okay. And the 20,000 is really just the combination of the city money and the United Way money per year?
That's correct.
But not include the neighborhood association portion for the leveraging?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. I think that's the only question I have, Mr. Chair, and at the appropriate time, I'd like to move a motion on this.
Okay, that's noted. Councillor Gazzola.
Has there been a lot of activity with this in the last 2 or 3 years? If so, what kind of activity has there been with these type of grants?
Excuse me, just a point of clarification. Do you mean, has there been a lot of activity with the Community Assistant Loan Fund?
Yeah, have we given out a lot of funds?
There hasn't been a lot of activity with the fund. If you look to the report on page 10.2, in 2011 there was a repayment by the Waterloo Boxing Academy, the same in 2012 and 2013. And in 2013, the Kitchener-Waterloo Art Gallery borrowed $15,000 from this account to be paid back between 2014 and 2016.
No, I read that in the report.
Yeah.
You're using my time up here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. But the reason I'm asking is there a lot of call here. We're going into a program. Have there been a lot of groups that have come and we don't have any money for them? I don't understand where we're going here.
It's my understanding that there hasn't been a lot of take-up for the Community Assistant Loan Reserve Fund. Partly, I believe that there's a belief that it's because the community doesn't know about it. So one of the things we're suggesting in this report is to better communicate that out to the community.
I'm amazed too, and I'm somewhat alarmed at the fact that we have a reserve fund there that has $338,000 over and above what we need to have as a maximum figure, which is very liberal. And yet there are so many other areas in the city we're struggling, and we have these funds there that there's been no real call for them. I guess I shouldn't. my question was, why has there been a big call for this? The other question I find interesting is, why is the United Way involved in this? Is this a normal activity for United Way?
Funding is a normal activity in United Way. They've been working with others in the community to try to get funding deeper into the community. So they've been looking at ways to do things similar to what this grant would do, which is animate the community at a local level. So they're looking for ways to get into the community. It's part of their mandate, yes.
Okay, but from what I'm understanding here now, up till now, there's been no great request for fundings, and we're going to try to generate some kind of activity so we can start giving some of our funds away.
Mr. May, you care to add some?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. There's been no great request because, frankly, we haven't had a program. What we're suggesting is that we do have a number of community groups come to us on a regular basis asking for smaller grants than we currently have. It's a hole within our grant program. And so instead of simply creating a grant program like the others where they're small dollars and we just give them away and don't see those funds again, what staff have decided to do is to leverage the municipal funding to not only get the United Way to contribute, but also the community organization to contribute.
But that's the question I asked. I asked what activities have there been, and I was given a quote of what was in the report. But so there's been a lot of activity, a lot of requests.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're talking about two different things. So let me be clear. We have a community loan program that exists today that is underutilized. It was at the direction of a motion by Councillor Fernandez some months ago that staff go away and look at how to better utilize that existing program. As we were looking at that, we're now making a recommendation to create a brand new program to use a very small portion of those funds for a different purpose.
But no one has yet given me an indication for this brand new program, the amount of activity that we've had and what we've had to turn down in the past.
So through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll try one more time, and perhaps I'm not communicating it clearly. We have on a regular basis community groups that come to Renata Willems, who runs our grant program, looking for grants. And we do not have the size and nature of grant that they want. And so this is fielding a specific, I can't tell you, has there been 15 in the last year, has there been 20? I don't know. But I can tell you that it is a regular occurrence. I can also tell you that the City of Waterloo has had the same program, the same matching fund for several years, and it's been very successful in terms of the uptake. If we find that there are not enough community groups who are interested, point one, this is only a recommendation for a 3-year program, and at which time we'll review that. But point two would be, frankly, the only problem with not having enough community groups is the funding will go unspent. So there is really no risk to the municipality.
Councillor Glenn Graham.
Thanks very much, Mark. And just like to ask if a neighborhood has to be affiliated, or can they be a small neighborhood group that's a few streets that's unaffiliated to request this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is one of the significant pieces of this grant is that, no, they don't have to be affiliated with their groups. So it allows very localized grassroots groups to apply for funding, which is something that has not been provided in the past.
That's great news. Thanks.
Councillor Fernandez. Thank you,
and thanks to Mr. May for sort of acknowledging that, it was something that I was really interested in. This is it reminds me a little bit of our community environmental improvement grants. It's a little bit along the same kind of lines, I think. So will there be monitoring? And I was trying to find that in the criteria. I think I kind of found it loosely, but will there be monitoring for repeat requests so that we just don't end up, repeating? One of the things we found with the community environmental improvement grants was we were continually doing tree planting for schools or greening of schools, and over and over again. Finally, we started to say, well, wait a minute, we need to revisit that. So I was trying to find if we were building that into the criteria and how we were going to be doing that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a couple of things that we're doing to monitor that. First of all, in the proposal, we're asking for the contact names and the people who are involved. We're asking them to describe what it is they are to do that they are going to do, and then at the end, we're asking, depending on the size of the grant, for a report at the end. So through that means, I believe the committee can monitor and determine whether or not people are coming back for similar type of events and projects, and make decisions accordingly.
And you're right. When I read about the process for applying, I saw that you had those pieces in it. I guess I wasn't just thinking about whether that would stop sort of the repeat customer. That's not the right way of saying it, but I think you understand what I'm indicating here. One of the things that the Environmental Committee does, and I think it's really important piece, is that once the grant is given to the community group, they come back and they present to the Environmental Committee. Has that been a consideration that, since this seems to be something that more in keeping with the Health and Safety Committee, that community group come back and make a presentation? So if there's something that they've done within their community that has created a buzz, or it's created a more community spirit, that they come back and tell the successful story. Is that something that maybe we should be looking at adding to this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a good point. I guess we would consider the size of the grant when doing that. I think we've got the opportunity to do that when we're asking for the final report from them. So if it's a grant of $5,000, there indeed might be something we might want to get a presentation on, not only just to see what's been done, but if other communities might be able to do similar things. So that's a good point.
Right, and I think you're right. I think, even though we at the Environmental Committee have given out like a $500 grant, sometimes that group is so excited about coming and telling us what they did with it. They're enthusiastic. They want to make a presentation to the Environmental Committee, or a $5,000. So of course, this is definitely going to be a subsection of, or a complete separation between our Tier 1 and Tier 2 grants. It's on its own, has its own application process and own. Not jurisdiction, but oversight.
That's correct. That's another thing that's unique with this grant, is that people can apply throughout the year, given resource availability. The community investment grants are done at a very specific moment in time. And how are we hoping to get the word out? I mean, outside of the people who may be sitting on the Safe and Healthy Committee, they'll probably get the message out. Will we be doing it through our community centers, maybe through, I don't know if any of the other, I'm sure some of the other councils write in newsletters of their community centers. Is that something that you would suggest the council do once we've got all of the bugs out of it? It would be great if councillors, once it's approved, that councillors get it out to their local communities. But we will also be looking at our partners, as well as neighborhood associations, as well as perhaps festival and neighborhoods and our volunteer services to get the word out. Absolutely. I'm thrilled that the United Way has stepped up as well. I mean, it's just another way of reaching out to our community and getting them to participate in different activities. And I know that this money has been sitting sort of in abeyance, and it's a lot of money, and I'm hoping that it will be used to do the improvement and community involvement that I think it's really intended to do. One last question. I know I'm over time.
Can you?
Is there other questions?
Yes, we have another question.
Okay, I'll come back.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's more of a comment than a question. Can I make that comment?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to compliment Mark and Michael and anyone else involved in this program. I don't know how any member of council could find fault with this program. Out in my neighborhoods, and there are 4 or 5 of them, there's a lot of enthusiasm about this whole project. and people are really keen to get at projects that up until now they have not been able to do on a neighborhood basis. So it has my full support. And the only thing I would ask is that you do your best, as you've promised, to communicate this program into the neighborhoods, because there have been occasions where I've found there's a lack of knowledge about these kind of programs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, one thing that I didn't mention was we will work on a communications plan to get this out as well.
Councillor Fernandez?
Thank you. Will we be keeping any of the loan portion of this fund now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only amount that I'm proposing to remove from the loan program is the $30,000 over the 3-year period.
Okay. And since the reserve has hit its maximum target for over $500,000, this might actually be a question for Mr. Chapman. Will we maintain that $500,000 balance, or what is our minimum balance on that? Oh, I see Ryan coming down. So,
through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I can give a shot at it. And if the community services guy doesn't do well, we'll try with finance. As per the policy, we would close out the balance above the $500,000 limit, and that would go to the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund.
Maybe I'm not I'm sorry, Mr.
So our reserve policy specifically sets a limit for the community loan program, and on this it is $500,000. We're 800 and something thousand at this point. So in accordance with the reserve policy, we will close out that additional 300,000 and put that into the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund.
Okay, so then we'll only be working from a $500,000 threshold, and then whittle it down. Will we be putting money back into this fund, or is it our aim to just deplete it entirely?
So there's no annual contribution, so over time it would get depleted.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. And this has been moved, right?
Councillor Urbanovich moved it. We have no further questions. Councillor Urbanovich?
I wanted to move it, so I will be moving it. And just very briefly on it, I want to thank staff for their work on this. This is the kind of thing we've been hearing from many small community grassroots groups for a number of years that they were hoping for in order to help facilitate them developing various community initiatives in their neighborhoods. As Mr. May indicated, this is a program that the City of Waterloo has had in place for a few years now, and I know in speaking with Councillor Cian, it's been very successful up there, and I'm hoping it'll be equally successful in our community. I think the fact that it also brings about a partnership with the United Way is an added bonus. These kind of collaborations are really the way we need to go in terms of building our community in the future, and this certainly is a step in the right direction.
Councillor Glenn Graham?
Thanks very much, and I'd like to just not only thank staff but also Councillor Fernandez for her expression of interest in this. It's something that, as a neighbourhood president, I've had a lot of interest in. And speaking to Jim Deers about this and his experience in Seattle, it's been extremely successful. And in my neighbourhood involvement, I think it's, to Councillor Gazzola's point, I think if it's something that was made available, I think there'd be a lot of interest on the part of neighbourhoods. So I am confident it does present another opportunity for those neighbourhood groups that do want to do grassroots fundraising, whether it's for a community garden or some kind of signage in their neighbourhood. I've heard a lot of positive opportunities for this kind of thing, and so I will be fully supportive of it.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you. I'll be quick as well. I'm very much in support of this. I've anecdotally heard many opportunities in the ward I represent that wish there was a system like this in place, and I would like to finally thank staff for finding a way to implement the funding that doesn't affect the budget.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can think of a few areas in the ward I represent that residents were looking at some improvements. I think overall this is a fabulous initiative, and again, staff did a fabulous job, and thanks for putting in such a program that I think the community can take some ownership in their community, and it's all good. And with that, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Next item up is item number 11. Is item number 11. We're going to be dealing with the proposed Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee, and Mr. Whitmer will be introducing the staff report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sitting in for William today. The Multi-Use Pathway and Trails Master Plan was approved by Council in May 2012. One of the recommendations was to address the mandate of the Cycling Advisory Committee. Since 2012, staff have been working with the Cycling Advisory Committee regarding possible changes to this mandate. The Multi-Use Pathway and Trail Network serves a variety of users with different requirements, including cycling. Having a committee that can represent this diversity of users will facilitate the setting of priorities and discussions and directions for improvement and expansion of our trail network. An advisory committee providing advice and oversight of the implementation of both the Cycling Master Plan and the Multi-Use Pathways and Trails Master Plan would provide a broader platform of public involvement. In January 2014, staff were directed to engage in consultation with stakeholders to either establish a new committee or broaden the terms of reference for the existing advisory committee. Staff prepared several options for consideration as part of their consultation. A was no change to the existing committee. B, an active transportation advisory committee. C, a cycling advisory committee with a trails subcommittee. And D, establish a new trails advisory committee and retain the existing cycling committee. Through the consultation process, a purpose and scope, including responsibilities based on the mandates for each of the options being considered, was presented for input. At a consultation meeting with the Cycling Advisory Committee on June 10th, an additional option of Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee was introduced, and after significant discussion, which was really good, and I thank Peter Dietz for leading that and facilitating that during the day. It was quite effective. Subsequently endorsed, a draft terms of reference is attached as Appendix A to this report. A summary of all of the comments from the participants is included in the report on pages 11.6 to 11.8, as well as information from the region of Waterloo and the cities of Cambridge and Waterloo. And basically, they supported the terms of reference that were being proposed and felt that a broader mandate and scope was beneficial for everybody that was considered. To summarize, the Public Advisory Committee with a broader mandate will provide for focused public input by all trail users and the interconnection of cycling and pedestrian routes, and will provide valuable guidance and clarification of priorities to implement both the Cycling Master Plan and Multi-Pathway and Trails Master Plan. The current Cycling Advisory Committee has made significant contributions to the implementation of cycling infrastructure and programs. This valuable work is recognized by staff, and we look forward to and encourage a continued strong focus for the new Cycling Advisory Committee. In conclusion, the implementation of the recommendations for a Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee will provide for more robust and broad public involvement in the delivery of the active transportation infrastructure and assist council and staff in clarifying public priorities as plans for on- and off-road pedestrian and cycling facilities and programs are realized. With these comments, staff requests council's approval of the recommendations before you today. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a delegation. We have Mr. Peter Dietz, of the chair of the Cycling Advisory Committee. And he is going to speak on all four items, and I will give you 7 minutes like I did to the last.
Would you like me to speak to all four items at the same time?
Yeah, I prefer that you get it all.
Certainly, that's fine.
Go back and
okay,
forth.
so first of all, with respect to changing the mandate, and thank you very much for having me, I really wanted to appreciate Mr. Jim Whitmer's attendance and Mr. William Sleeth's attendance at our last advisory committee meeting. I think we were able to distill what the essence is of what we thought was going to be important moving forward. Congratulations to the City of Kitchener for getting a silver medal from the Share of the Road Coalition. I think it speaks to the great work from staff, from City Council, and from the work of the KCAC. I think we were really able to distill I don't want to say the prominence of cycling, but I'm really pleased to see that in our new option that cycling does retain an important role going forward. Any questions?
We do have some questions. Councillor Galloway Seelock.
Well, Peter, were you going to speak to all the items? Or
I'll be speaking to all 4 items. So if you want me to address all 4 right now,
go ahead.
Keep going forward then.
We'll
okay, Nyberg Contraflow. When I first joined the Cycling Advisory Committee 3 3/4 years ago, that was one of the first items that staff had brought to us for approval. I'm pleased to see that we have moved forward. The foundational work is done. It's an important connector for the Trans-Canada Trail. It adds additional parking for the residents of Nyberg. It will help prevent incursions from motor vehicle traffic on the one-way street. So we are fully in support of the staff with their decision to complete the Nyberg Contraflow. Thirdly, what was our next item?
It's the Downtown Cycling Network.
Downtown Cycling Network. We looked at the city staff's plan to improve not only routing through the downtown, but signage, municipal bylaw requirements, and we fully support city staff's recommendations to implement the downtown bicycle network. And lastly,
last one's the advisory committee bylaw review recommendations for cycling.
I know we were past the 90 days that we were originally asking for staff input to bylaw review, but we were very fortunate to have some regional partnership in moving this forward. I'm pleased at the movement that we've had, at the sober consideration that everyone has had to improve cycling and motorist interaction in the city. I think one place that we are missing is not a clear roundabout plan in terms of how cyclists and motorists are going to interact there. The HTA really doesn't cover it off specifically. I do understand that the region really controls most of the roundabouts here. I do think that we need to partner with them and come up with a more robust plan to move bicycles and cars through roundabouts.
Okay. We do have some questions. Councillor Galloway Seelock.
Yeah, was the Cycling Advisory Committee, did you provide input on the actual policy, or was it just really with the makeup of the committee, the name of the committee? So
it wasn't just naming. I think it had to do with a policy, focus of the committee, really what the committee was going to provide in terms of work product and leadership going forward. So okay. the name is the name semantically significant. Yes.
Right. No, I think you captured what I was trying to ask. I believe that because my question's around quorum, and did you get into any of that detail when you talked at the advisory committee level?
Yes, so quorum is going to remain the same at 5 members, but we did ask for additional membership in order to provide extra bodies to do the work. So we were asking for somewhere between 11 and 13, and that is reflected in the staff report.
Right, I see that. I was just, the rationale then for why you only wanted 5 as quorum, because usually it's at least half, if not more.
That's just what it's been going forward. I don't think that it wasn't anything that we had actively considered.
Okay. I'll have questions of staff and prepared to move the recommendation at the appropriate time.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. I have no questions of Peter because sitting on the Cycling Advisory Committee, I support everything that we've been doing and discussing. I was hoping to move it as a Cycling Advisory Committee member, but I'll wait.
Mayor Zaire.
Thanks very much. Peter, thanks for being here, and not only this time, but the work on the cycling committee. I'm going to have some questions of staff later on and comments as it relates to the cycling and the walking as part of multi-use trails. So can you comment, Peter, as to what consideration the cycling committee, not the new committee, the cycling committee has had, and when it relates to looking forward to compatibility of pedestrians and cyclists?
Well, we have addressed some trail issues already without having trails as part of our mandate. Specifically, we were looking at mid-block trail crossings. We provided a comprehensive report via the Infrastructure and Technical Subcommittee, and those specifically addressed pedestrian and cycling issues at those important interfaces. As far as further pedestrian issues, we are going to rely on the further expertise of the incoming cycling or advisory committee members as chosen by council.
Okay. Glad you got your bike back, by the way.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun getting it.
Thanks. I'll have comment or questions.
If you want to, I'll put you back in the queue. Councillor, oh, you took yourself out. Okay, Councillor Etherington.
Yeah, Peter, you covered all of these areas. Are you prepared for questions on all of these?
Anytime, yes.
No. I was going to ask if you'd locked your bike, but I guess the mayor beat me to that. Mm-hmm. My other questions have to do with the other reports.
Okay, we'll deal with those when we're
in
discussion with those reports. Or is it directed towards staff or to Mr. Davies? No, but is it towards staff or Mr. Davis? Your question. Then go proceed. Go ahead, repeat that again. I didn't have your mic on.
On the Nyberg situation, I'm sure you've biked that route many, many times.
Certainly.
As I have a few times. Do you anticipate any problems with that contraflow, that opposite way to the one-way stream?
Contraflow bike lanes have been in use in a lot of different jurisdictions, including in Ontario. Toronto has them. It's a very, very short contraflow lane that is being proposed here. I think it's a great way to move bikes through unused roadway. And I don't anticipate any problems with that.
Okay. And overall, I think as late as today, council has received an email from someone, a cyclist, pointing out the value of sharrows. Do you feel they have any benefit at all, sharrows?
Sharrows are a great indicator of what is provided in the Highway Traffic Act. That is the fact that where the conditions warrant, a cyclist may take the lane. To me, that is the most important benefit that we can get out of a sharrow. So it's a behavioral changer, I hope.
Do you think that'll take some time for that behavioral change to be made?
I would say yes. I think in the great cycling cities, we can look at Montreal, for example. They're spending $10 million a year, every year. They are not keeping up with the demands on their system. They've built it, and the cyclists have come. And that is a system that is 30 to 40 years in the making. So do I anticipate a 30 to 40 year time horizon? No, I don't. But I do think that is a mode of interaction that is going to change over the course of time. I'm hoping that the sharrows accelerate that.
Thank you. And also, just one other question. On the subject of e-bikes, do you have an opinion on e-bikes on our trails and in our parks?
I think it's important to distinguish between an e-bike and an e-scooter.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, e-scooters.
So e-scooters, I actually have quite a problem with them. They're heavy. They are often travel faster than the maximum speed that is allowed by the province of Ontario, which is 32 kilometers an hour. And also in our bylaws, I would believe that they are expressly prohibited from using our trails and multi-use pathways. So I do have an issue with a 350-pound vehicle that is sharing the same space at 32 kilometers an hour with pedestrians and strollers and inline skaters.
Yeah, they are allowed in Victoria Park, for example.
They are not. They're not specifically allowed. In fact, it might be my understanding that they could be bylaw infractions or bylaws infractions are taking place when they're in Victoria Park.
Well, that's interesting. The police tell me that under the Highway Traffic Act, they cannot stop them.
I think they're misinterpreting the rule. Okay. That'd be my opinion. I do know that in the City of Toronto, they have taken active steps to decide municipally what can use their cycling infrastructure, and so specifically e-scooters and e-bikes cannot use their cycling infrastructure unless they are being actively pedaled. So that means without using the powered part of their drivetrain.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Glenn Graham.
Peter, thanks a lot for your leadership on this committee. It's really important. What do you think about the idea of Sharrows going up a hill like on Queen Street where the speed would be slower and the bike might impede traffic? Is that something you think is okay, or is that an inappropriate use of the Sharrow?
Well, whether the Sharrow is there or not, where a street is narrow and where the road conditions warrant, the cyclist can take the lane. It doesn't matter what the speed is. So as far as impeding traffic, the bicycles are traffic too. So having a Sharrow there helps indicate that the bicycle has a right to be there. The bicycle has a right to be there no matter what. That's in the HTA.
Right. What's your feeling on the gates on our trail systems? We've opened some of them. What's your feeling about the rest of the gates and whether they should be open?
My feeling is, and I think I share that for the rest of the entire Cycling Advisory Committee, is that some of the gates are open and closed arbitrarily. So I don't think that we've really followed through with the original recommendation that happened last year. I would like to see more of the gates open and having less impediments for all trail users to cross.
Okay, thank you for that. What do you think about our trail width? Mayor Zaire talked about pedestrians and cyclists being on the trail. Do we have sufficient width for that, or do we need to look at widening our trail system eventually to get to the point where there's a little bit more width for that?
I think we're really at the place now. We've got some great new e-loop sensors that we're using to actually measure traffic, and I think before we move in those directions, I think it's important just to find out who's using these trails and how many are on there, and then we can really make sound decisions based on some evidence.
That's a great idea. What are we missing in terms of additional steps forward? Is there something that you're looking for, like a 1 meter distance separation between cars, and what about going forward about lane separation? What are we looking at in the future?
Well, it looks like that Bill 173 is going to be reintroduced with the new provincial government. So I think we'll take care of some of those issues via provincial legislation and changes to the HTA. I think municipally, what we really separated bicycle infrastructure works best, especially where traffic speeds are high. And we want to move as many people as we can through it. If you build it, they will come. It's been proven jurisdiction after jurisdiction after jurisdiction. So, but the other thing is that being able to partner and communicate with regional leadership, because so many of our roads are actually under the jurisdiction of the region of Waterloo as opposed to the city of Kitchener. And so it's really important where those two bits of infrastructure meet, that we're all on the same page, and that we communicate that.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Verbanovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks for all of your work, Peter, on the cycling committee. Some of my questions have already been asked, including the one about Queen Street, because I know all of council, for example, heard today from an active cycler in our community who feels that Cheryl's aren't the best approach on places like Queen Street going forward. I guess as we look at the long term, I'm wondering what your thoughts are, particularly on some of our main thoroughfares, in terms of this notion of bike lanes versus, a dedicated lane or trail for them that's separated in some way. Just more and more as people are biking more, I'm hearing about that from residents. And has there been any further dialogue about that amongst the committee?
Well, I would say our preference would be for separated bicycle infrastructure. And it's not cost prohibitive, but it needs to be planned out in advance. And we also have to plan that in concert with the region. It's because so many of our things are interconnected, region versus city. So those plans have to be done very, very carefully so that we don't waste time and money, doing things twice.
Absolutely, and I think it's something that we need to continue to look at, particularly as the region moves ahead and does various roadworks and so on, to try to deal with it. Okay, that's all the questions I have for today.
Okay. We have no further questions, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, councillors.
Councillor Galloway, Seelog, questions to staff?
I just wanted to, again, come back to the question about quorum on page 1113 and the rationale for 5, and if that's even allowed, or does it have to be simple majority when it comes to quorum?
Mr. Wilmer?
Through the chair, there is a previous council decision here that directs that quorum for all advisory committees will be 5. I think it used to be that it was the simple majority of the committee, and some advisory committees had difficulty reaching quorum. And so when decisions were made to expand the membership, the decision was also made that quorum would be the absolute number of 5.
Okay. My other question, and this may have been a conversation, I believe it's a conversation that we've had and we've changed from other advisory committees, but with regards to the council member being a co-chair, I thought we had moved away from that model to allow citizens the opportunity to have those leadership experiences. Is that a conversation that we've had and I thought we moved away from, but
Through the chair, that does sound familiar, and I think that has been the general direction. I can't recall whether there was a particular resolution of council on it or whether that's simply been sort of a general trend.
Well, if that's something that we can look for next Monday, I think that would. Mr. Whitmer, before I continue, did you want to add?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, in 3.4 of the draft, it talks about the committee shall, from amongst its members, choose a committee co-chair who is not a member of council to co-chair the committee with the appointed council. Okay, so it's some sections redundant. When William put this together, I don't think he had an issue. He may have been regurgitating what had previously been an accepted practice, and if you want to eliminate that, we don't have an issue with that.
Right. It's just if that's the way, I believe that's the way all of our advisory committees go, because I don't think there's any member of council now that co-chairs any one of our advisory committees. I could be wrong. I would like to see this one consistent with the rest, that if it's a co-chair model, that both of them be reps from the committee and not the council member that sits on that committee. So I guess if we can just look into that to confirm it for next Monday, and then if that is the case, then I can bring forward that amendment to this on Monday. But I'm supportive of the direction that this is moving.
And you're moving it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor Zare?
Thanks very much. I read this report, and not just because of the report that was coming forward, but coincidentally, I met with Max at my usual monthly meeting with him last week, and one of the comments that was made was about multi-use trails and the issue that some of them had related to pedestrians on trails. And it was coincidental, I believe, in terms of the report that's before us right now. And the concern was expressed that as pedestrians on multi-use trails, that they as pedestrians are feeling vulnerable. And this may be an issue of education, it may be an issue of signage, or a variety of things. So with that in mind, I read this report and the policy fairly closely, looking for some key words. And if you start at page 11-11, so I'm building up to a question of staff, but I have to give this background in order to give the context. The second line, it says it's about all ages and abilities to walk and cycle. And that in 1.1, again, pedestrians and cyclists. And the next one, to advise council on the delivery of cycling and trail policies and promote and enhance walking. So there are some key words there that actually did come up. However, when I go to page 11-12, and it's the makeup or the composition of the committee, I see that the membership is drawn from residents with skills and demonstrated expertise in the area of cycling, who may also have an awareness of the needs of all users of the multi-use pathways and trail network, etc. I don't know how we define it, but I think we are missing something here, because it is saying we're going to have everyone on the committee who has cycling as their primary purpose of alternate travel. And that may be an overstatement of it, but I think it's glaring by its absence about having someone there whose primary alternative to the vehicle is that of walking as opposed to cycling. Because if it stays as it is, the bias will always be towards cycling. And as strong a supporter I am for this new policy in terms of the cycling policy and a whole array of things that we're talking about today, I really am supportive of it. But I would be remiss, first of all, in not bringing forward Mac's concerns as seniors. But it's not just about seniors. It's about children in a whole variety of age groups where walking is that primary alternative for transportation. And the issue is primarily, obviously, on the multi-use trails. So my question is, has the committee considered this in a serious way, and were there other ideas put forward that would deal with this matter?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there was significant discussion about the composition of the Cycling Advisory Committee and the new Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee, for the specific reason that although the emphasis for the membership was on cycling-related matters, there was significant discussion that representation on the committee must take into consideration all of the interests of others that are using the trails and the path network in order to ensure that there was a balanced approach to recommendations going before council. And the reason why it was a single committee was to ensure that there were no conflicts that council was going to have to address at the time and basically choose between one particular committee and the other. And so the discussion then would ensure that as that balanced oversight was brought forward, that any recommendations would be balanced and ensure that all the needs were taken into consideration and that were supported by all areas of representation in the community. So that was a significant discussion and concern for both sides of the equation when we were having that meeting.
If I may, Mr. Chair, push that a little further. Was there any discussion about how you may define a member of this committee who is not the person that is stated here in the third last line on 11-12? Expertise in the area of cycling, who may, and I emphasize the word may, It's not even must. So it's possible that you would have cycling as the supreme bias, notwithstanding the fact that it talks about pedestrians and walking in some cases in this, but it is not strong enough in my mind. So was there a specific discussion of how you might define such a person? Even one?
I think there was discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, about the selection process for application to the committee could be the mechanism by which council could then assist in the appointment process to ensure that there was that balanced approach to representation, to eliminate the potential for an entirely one-sided approach, whether pedestrian or cycling, to be on the committee. Somebody who has an expertise in cycling doesn't necessarily mean that they do a lot of cycling. They know what we're talking about. They know a lot about cycling. They understand the issues that cyclists have, but also are prepared to look at the pedestrian side of the equation for those that are pedestrians, as well as other components of the trail users, like those that are mobility challenged, that may have a need to be integrated more effectively and fluidly within the trail use.
Okay. That was my question. I have two concerns which I will come back and request for some amendment to the policy. And the second one would be for the quorum. I think it should be 6 members.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Two concerns that I'd like to raise, just to mention to Mayor Zayer, that in the discussions of the Cycling Advisory Committee around the composition of the committee, it was very clear that we couldn't come up with what's the definition of an expert walker. I mean, we all walk, and we all walk for various reasons outside of saying that somebody was, a hiker or something like that. But that's not necessarily a need for a qualification if you're able to walk on the multi-use trails. So there was significant discussion, and it was very clear that there was an openness to not necessarily have somebody to have somebody sitting on the committee, one or two members at the very least, who may not cycle at all. And the committee, there's a number of committee members sitting here right now, and I know that that's the way the discussion was. They wanted to keep it very open, and they wanted to make sure that that was addressed. As far as the co-chair situation goes, and I need to ask a question. In a number of the committees that I've been sitting on over the last 4 years, there's often been a struggle to have a member from the public, especially in the first year of of an advisory committee, to sit as to have two members from the public to sit as co-chairs. Has there, and I know that we've changed that in the last number of years, so we've gone to only members of the public sitting as chairs, but I'm wondering if it might be wise to at least have a co-chair maybe for the first 6 months of any advisory committee, just for that transition, for a member of the public who may not feel comfortable being a co-chair or a chair, so that they can at least have that opportunity, that training. I know we do training, so I'm just wondering if there's been ever any thought to something like that.
Mr. Wilmer?
Through the chair, I'm not sure that we've put our minds to that exactly, but I think that the current situation, which I've just been updated on, which is that the chair shall not be a member of council, but the vice chair may be a member of council. That actually allows for exactly what you're suggesting, so that if early in the term the chair would benefit from that kind of mentoring, a member of council could be that vice chair.
Okay, that's great, because I think that's how it should be maybe worded in the policy, that committee chairs be a member of the public, and that the co-chairs could be, maybe we should have the wording, could be a council member for the first year. I mean, you're right. I think the mentorship is very important.
Any further questions?
That's all. I have comments when it's time.
Councillor Glenn Graham.
Thanks very much. And my question pertains to page 11-12 and the comment at the end of the page on universal accessibility. And my thoughts were going to where Mayor Zare was, but a little further in terms of having someone on the committee who had accessibility challenges, and wondering if that was a consideration, not necessarily a member of GRAC, but to put that in, excuse me, as some kind of criterion that would be ideal to canvass for, to see if someone with those challenges would be interested in sitting on the committee. Wondering if that was addressed or discussed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are not opposed to any representation on the committee. In that sense, if there is an applicant that chose to let their name stand and council chose to include them on, by all means. What we didn't want to have happen is that there would be no representation for those that had the ability to speak or be aware of the challenges that someone who has mobility limitations that would have on the committee, so that they could speak to those specific components, so that wasn't lost. And I think the wording does make reference to the fact that they have that universal accessibility awareness, so the council can choose without having a situation where you're looking for someone to be on a committee, you can't find anybody, and therefore then you have a gap. Somebody is to fill in, because it's supposed to be a broad group that shares all of the interests associated with utilization of those trails.
You raise a good point that if someone has the awareness of it, that would be desirable, and I think that would be something I would encourage, that that would be written in, that it would be that would be given some preference, that someone, if they had accessibility awareness, that would be something that would get additional points, so to speak, on some kind of an application. I think that would address my wish to see that on as a priority on the committee.
Okay, we have no further questions, so we're going to open it up. Councillor Galloway, you want to? Okay. Councillor Fernandez, you want to make comments?
Yep. Just in closing on the policy, it took a while for the committee to really take a look, and I think if you look at all the different notes, we addressed a number of issues. With talking about accessibility issues, talking about seniors groups, talking about seniors in general. I think it was a well-rounded discussion, and there was never any desire to be exclusive. I think it really was about being inclusive and accepting members, and that's why we added 2 members to the committee, to make sure that we covered off a lot of areas. As far as quorum goes, I understand that there may be an amendment with regards to quorum. We always at cycling we always have a full room, so it's very rare that we run into a quorum problem. But I have sat on a couple of committees who do really struggle with quorum. So I don't know what the rationale would be to change it from 5 to 6. But I hope that doesn't follow suit with some of the other committees, because it becomes a pretty difficult situation to get quorum sometimes. I'm looking forward to seeing us move forward on this and all of our cycling initiatives that we're covering today.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'm going to comment briefly. I think Mayor Zare indicated he would be bringing forward amendments with respect to item 11, and I would just comment in advance of that I picked up on the same issue specifically with the composition, and clearly the comments made notwithstanding, anyone that's applying for this committee in the future, it does clearly say the membership is drawn from residents with skills and demonstrated expertise in the area of cycling, who may also be part of these other issues. So it is clearly aimed exclusively at cycling, which I have some significant concerns with, for a couple of reasons, and not only the issues related to mobility, but issues with changing technologies, and I do have a concern that there's some bias out there against e-bikes, for example, and I want to make sure that that's covered as well. Scooters, certainly. I mean, at some point, there's going to have to be a further discussion on what constitutes an e-bike and what constitutes a scooter. And I think weight and speed are two avenues should be looked at very clearly. But someone who's interested in that should be there as well as changing technologies. Who knows what kind of technologies that people are going to want to use for recreational purposes on these trails. So in anticipation of the motion, I'm hoping that there might be a set number of people of the 11 to 13 members that have some expertise in cycling, but I would hope that at least half would have some interest, and I'll look to Mayor Zaire for the wording, but would have some interest in other forms of active transportation.
Mayor Zaire.
Thank you. Has the motion been, recommendation put on the floor? Okay.
Yes, it has.
So I would like to make two amendments. I'm looking at the policy 11-12 for the reference and how that fits into the recommendation. I'll leave that to the clerk. 11-12, there are two parts there. I would say in 3.2, this is the fourth line, where it's referencing someone being in the area of cycling who may also have, I would say who shall also have an awareness. That's number one. Number two, adding a second clause, and I do not have it in writing, and I should, and I will do that, but it's quite simple. The committee member shall, this would be at the end of that area, the committee membership shall include at least, I had one, it could be more, at least one member who is not a cyclist. That's number two. And number three would be 3.5, where I would make the quorum 6 members, with the committee ranging from 12 to 13, 12 to 14 actually, that I think it should be a minimum of 6 people being the quorum, and I understand that should not be a problem. The issue of co-chair, I will leave that for Councillor Galloway-Seelock, because she had a concern there. So those are my 3 amendments, and I will write out that sentence.
Councillor Gazzola, you have questions on the motion, the recommendation?
I was going to make some comments.
You may go ahead.
Yeah, I will support the recommendation that's before us, and along with the amendments, I don't see any problems with those amendments. I'd like to say that I do quite often attend the cycling committee meetings, and this is something that they have really spent a lot of time considering, discussing. I think they've really tried to deal with all of the aspects, and I really believe that they talked at great length about this inclusiveness, that they want to make sure that that people who may be primarily pedestrians are not left out. So I think, and to my way of thinking, more often than not, if a cyclist and a pedestrian are really not that far apart. People that cycle also do a lot of pedestrian. So it's a different breed of people that always use automobiles and what have you. So I think there's been a great deal of discussion gone on. I know the last meeting. I don't know whether the last meeting was ever going to get over or not, because they really covered almost every aspect. And one of the things that was mentioned on more than one occasion is that this is where we sit at now, and let's try this out. If at the end of the year there's problems with this, it can be changed. But this will be an improvement over what we have now, and therefore I think we need to try it out. We may not have all the things ironed out, but that can be changed. So I will support what's before us. I don't have a problem with the amendments. I know that those amendments, they can be clarified for the selection committee who do pick people who sit on various city committees. I mean, they're the ones that ultimately pick who sits on that committee. So I think it can be dealt with.
For the record, Mayor Zaire, did you want to add one more point about the co-chair in there? Because I don't... Sure.
Mr. Wilmers informed me that he may have some wording with regards to 3.4 to put forward.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 3.4, and it also relates to 5.2. So it's a 3.4 to be consistent with, I think, all other advisory committees, or the way they should be going as their terms of reference are updated, would read, the committee shall from amongst its members choose a chair who shall not be a member of council and a vice chair who may be a member of council. And I think that will be consistent with other advisory committees. 5.2, because it refers to the council co-chair, will need to be revised. So I would suggest that in the second line after the word unless, the rest be deleted right through to expedient. So now it would say the committee shall report through the Community and Infrastructure Services Committee unless exceptional circumstances necessitate that a report be made directly to council.
Okay.
I would add that to the recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Glenn Graham.
Thanks very much, and I greatly appreciate all the work that the Cycling Advisory Committee has done here, and I hope that they don't feel that we're meddling, but I do think that we're trying to formalize a lot of the spirit of what they're saying here and just make sure that there's a little bit more emphasis on having a representation of the committee that just looks at other aspects of it that they did talk about. So I fully support all the recommendations and the amendments, and I think that, again, this is a great work that does give the committee the powers to do its excellent work.
Councillor Verbanovich.
Thank you. I, too, will be supporting the recommendations that are before us, including the amendments. I want to thank Peter and the entire Cycling Committee, as well as Josh and who's our staff person, our main staff person working on this, but there's others as well, who have been working on the cycling file for some time. I had the opportunity to attend in Toronto at the cycling summit with Josh, and I guess it's fair to say he's a bit of a rock star when you're talking to people down there from other cities in terms of what we've been able to do here in the city of Kitchener. And I think these recommendations that are before us will help move us forward in areas that we've heard continually from our residents are a priority, both improving our pedestrian and our cycling active transportation options. And I think the committee and the recommendations that are before us will take us a further step in that direction.
Okay, we have no further comments. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Next item up is the Nyberg Cycling and Infrastructure Improvements, and this is Josh or Justin. Justin will be introducing the staff report. Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report in front of committee today is dealing with the Nyberg Contraflow bike lane. So Contraflow bike lane is essentially a lane which allows bicycle traffic to travel two-way on a street that's designated typically as one-way for motorized vehicles. As you may recall, this has been on the Cycling Committee's priority list for a number of years. A number of other municipalities within Ontario currently have contraflow bike lanes. There was a slight challenge with them in 2013. The City of Toronto had a number planned for various areas of the city. However, there's a conflict in the Highway Traffic Act, which one line says they're not permitted, another line says they are permitted. The MTO worked with the City of Toronto, and we've confirmed with the MTO that they are currently permitted. They've been identified in Book 18, which outlines guidelines for the design of cycling infrastructure, and it contains guidelines for how to properly install a contraflow bicycle lane. In terms of the design at this location, we've consulted with a number of members along the roadway. We sent letters out to all property owners along the road. And we did receive a few comments back from residents. One indicated that vehicles currently traveled the wrong way down Nyberg Street. So we're proposing to rectify that with the addition of a raised median at the entrance point at Ottawa Street and Nyberg, which will create a barrier for traffic to turn the wrong way down the street. Another item identified was letting traffic or getting out of your vehicle when it's parked on the street into a live traffic lane. So that's no different than any other two-way street where cars are required to park with their right wheels to the side of the curb. So because it's a one-way street right now, vehicles are currently allowed to park with their left wheels on the curb, and that allows people to outlet right onto the sidewalk. So that would be no different than any other roadway within the city. The other issue identified was snow clearing, and snow storage currently happens along the green strip along the north side of Nyberg Road. We've talked to operations staff, and they've indicated that that would still be the practice that would be maintained. So overall, we're recommending the installation of a contraflow bike lane between Sydney and Ottawa Street. We're also recommending sharrows be introduced along the other portions of the roadway to allow two-way traffic for cyclists, and also the relocation of parked vehicles from the south side of the street to the north side of the street to permit the installation of the contraflow bike lane.
We do have 3 delegations registered to speak on this issue. I just want to remind each delegate that we have 5 minutes to speak on the item, and then we will give you a quiet reminder of 30 seconds left in your 5 minutes. And with that, we have Diane Walden. Thank you for coming. You may proceed once you hit the podium.
Where the bike path is now, a lot of cyclists go right across Ottawa Street to 123 Ottawa, come out, go drive right across, and come out at 124 Sydney. Then they go up to Delta and down to Floral and continue. I've watched them. There's more cyclists and joggers do that than they do come down and around Nyberg, because they can just go right across. They don't have to go down and then come back up again. And I've asked some of them for their names and stuff. They wouldn't give me their names, but they prefer to do it that way, even though 123 Ottawa is, there's a car place there. They just go across there, and so do the joggers and the walkers, because they don't want to go down Ottawa, across, and then back up again. And for the snow removal, if they're going to continue doing the snow removal on the far side, the cars aren't going to be able to park there because passengers won't be able to get out.
Okay. Thank you for that. We do have a question for you from Councillor Fernandez.
No, I did, no.
Okay. Well, we have a question from Councillor Glenn Graham.
Thanks very much, and we don't have a map that shows that again, but could you just go over those streets again, because you went quickly and we're trying to put this together here.
Okay, when the bike path right now comes out to Ottawa.
Yes.
And right across from where it comes out is 123 Ottawa Street South.
Okay.
And they go across there, and it goes right through, and it comes out to 124 Sydney.
Okay.
They go up Sydney to Delta, which is right by the corner of the golf course. And they go down there to Floral, and then they continue on their way.
Is there any way we can see a map? I don't know if staff have access to that.
I don't know if they've got one that goes all the way. I don't. Wait a minute, it's not your turn. I don't know if that's got everything on there. Does that have it all on?
It's Ottawa and Nyberg, and there's Sydney.
Okay,
so
yeah.
is it coming out of here?
It comes out, yeah, it comes out right here. Because that goes right across.
Can I make a comment? I'm on the street
almost daily. I shovel the snow, I clean the sidewalks, whatever.
Excuse
On
me,
this
sir.
street,
Excuse me, sir.
you want to put the path
excuse
on
me,
the
sir.
south side.
Excuse me,
That's
sir.
where I live.
Excuse me, sir.
Across from my street,
Excuse me, sir. Can I
across
get-
from where I live,
Okay, okay. Can you-
across from where I live, 4 houses up. From the curb to the wall that everybody's missing. You can't get out of your car.
Okay.
Coming down the south.
Can you hold on, sir? Can you please state your name, because your time up to speak is not up yet. If you're the next delegate, but I will allow you to talk since you are up here.
Just let me finish.
Can you just state your name?
Okay, go ahead. Your name.
My name is Murray Weldon. I live on the street.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, you want the cycle side on the south side where I live. So I have to park on the other side and straight across the road for a 4 house length. You can't get out of the passenger side because there's a wall goes right from the bridge to the other street. From Ottawa to Sydney, there's a wall. And if you park on the north side, the passenger can't get out of the car or a vehicle. The bigger the vehicle, the less chance you have of getting out. So anyway, if this has to come down, this path, why can't it be on the north side? Because if we can park on the south side, the sidewalk's clean, I don't have to go out on the street or on the roadway. I just get in the car, and the person can see if there's any traffic coming. 7 years ago, I shovel the sidewalk. It's dry all summer or all winter. There's no snow on the sidewalk. The whole block. I do the whole block. Anyway, I'm shoveling the snow, and I'm looking at the traffic coming this way, and I backed out on the street, and this elderly man knocked me down. He's coming down the wrong way, and he apologized, and he wants to phone the police and the ambulance. I said, you didn't hurt me, I'm not bruised, you just knocked me down. But this is a going concern, traffic going both ways, up and down. Now, if this goes in as planned, if I back out on the street, I got to be watching for bikes coming and going in both directions, and cars coming in both directions on a one-way street. Now, the reason I keep this thing clean, because there's a handicap building up the block, and sometimes, like this morning, a woman come down with 4 handicapped people, but sometimes there's 8, 10 or more, and they walk side by side on the sidewalk, and maybe one will walk on the street, because they're going down the street, because they can see the traffic coming this way, supposedly. Now, if you put this in, there's traffic going in every direction. And I told a woman today what the plan was, and she said, that can't happen. I said, well, you know what can happen. And she says, we like coming down there, especially with the handicapped people, because they wander and whatever. But anyway, they walk down the street and come down here and go up, and that's just a little walk for them, just fresh air and whatever. And when they walk down the street, they can see the traffic coming. So if you put this lane in, you got bikes going up and going down, and cars going up and going down. If you got to put this thing in, put it on the north side, because, like I said, there's a fork. You can see it right. You can see a stretch where the wall is there. There's no grass or nothing, and you can't open the car to get out. The car door, you can't get out. So that's really what I have to say. And one of your finest was down the street this morning and discussing with him, and he said he can't believe it either. If you got to put the bike lane in, it should be on the north side.
Okay, we do have a few questions for you, Mr. and Mrs. Wallen. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, question to either one of you. You're trying to describe when you're coming down the Iron Horse Trail and across Ottawa Street, and you mentioned the two street numbers on Ottawa and on Sydney. Do they go through private property?
Pardon?
Yeah, it is.
They do?
It is, because on 123 Sydney, I think it's a car repair place, and at the other end, it's something else. So yeah, it does go through, but that's where everybody goes, because they don't want to jog, like go down, come out the bike path, go down, across, and then come back up again. So this way, if they come out from the trail, they can just go right across, and they come out almost to where Delta is for them to go down.
Okay. So from what you've told me and from what you've experienced, is the two property owners there in Ottawa and Sydney, the private property owners, are they upset with bikers and walkers coming
Nobody's ever
through?
said anything to them.
They just continue on and everybody's happy?
They just keep on biking along, and
Okay, so then if we put in this suggested bike Cheryl route, it's not going to change anything. They'll probably still keep using the other shortcut?
Well,
it's hard to say, because if all of a sudden there's arrows now saying you got to go down here and then turn here, if they start following the arrows, then they're not going to go through there anymore. Because right now there's no arrows to tell them where to go once they come to the edge of Ottawa Street.
Right. And so basically your suggestion right now to solve this or move forward is to have the bike path on the north side, beside the channel.
Well,
Yeah, put it on the north side and leave the south side the way it is.
if the bike path comes down that old iron trail, so it would be right about here. So if you just come across and go straight down, then you're going to go across another lane of traffic if you put it on the south side. But it's more practical to put it on the north side because you don't have to cross another lane of traffic.
So the main traffic, the proper traffic route on Nyberg is from Sydney to Ottawa. Is that what it's designed for? But you have people coming the other way just because they just make the wrong turn.
Well, some of them don't care. I yelled at one person, they had their windows down and they were coming the wrong way, and I said, do you realize you're going the wrong way? Because they weren't going fast. And he goes, yeah, I do it every day, so what?
Okay.
Like, they don't care.
All right.
But the issue I'm upset with is putting the bike trail on the south side. So I live there, I pay taxes there, I got to park here and walk across the street. And if I got somebody in, I got to drive them down the 2 or 3 houses so they can get out and walk up. Why should I when I live right here? Okay. Why can't I park here? I live here.
Thank you.
Mayor Zare?
I rode a bike before. I got nothing against bicycles.
Actually, I don't have a question for the delegation. I just wanted to, pardon the interruption, just wanted to remind council or committee that we do have a caucus item, one item, and we do have a guest with us that was scheduled to start at 4 o'clock. And this will be our only time to deal with this matter. And so I would encourage us to wind this one up as quickly as possible and then make a decision on how we're going to handle the last item, number 13. I was hoping, well, 20 minutes ago, I was hoping that we'd be able to wrap everything up by 4:15, 4:20 at the latest, because we will run into a problem. 6:30 is we're back in here. So hopefully we could wrap this one up quickly and then make a decision on item number 13.
Can we just bump item number 13 to maybe to the PSIC? Okay. We have no further questions for you, Mr. Miswald. Thank you. We have one more delegation, and that is Derek Baugh.
Mr. Chair, Councillors, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, first of all, for this opportunity. My name is Derek Dahl. I've owned and resident of 453 Nyberg Street. The end of July it'll be 5 years. I gotta say I love Kitchener. Didn't grow up here or anything. I love Kitchener, and I picked what I thought was the most ideal spot in Kitchener for me to live. Right? And I still think it's a real nice area. But for the last 4 years, for sure, there's been an ongoing, I could use another word that begins with that, but a cluster flub on that street. It's a one-way street that exits onto Ottawa, but it has no significant markings. Yeah, it's got 2 do not enter signs on the Ottawa end. It's got 2 one-way arrows, and it's got a stop line that runs across. I'm told it meets the Traffic Act. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that it's inadequate, totally inadequate for the area. 2 years ago, when Cortland Avenue was being rebuilt, and there was extra congestion on Ottawa Street, for one afternoon for 1 hour, I sat in my front veranda and counted the cars. In 1 hour, 17 vehicles. And many of them, without saying, knew what they were doing because they went to the other end as fast as they could go so they wouldn't be caught. Okay, there is, we spoke with a police officer today. I can't say enough about his kindness and cooperation and listening to us and what we wanted to say. He was on the bicycle himself, and he was going the wrong way down one-way street. I stopped him and I said, just as a joke on the other side, and he said, yeah, you want to take my ticket book? But anyway, let's get aside from that. He knows what's going on, but they're not there. They're not assigned. How can they, they're not assigned. They can't be there. We spoke for about 20, 25 minutes, and I was amazed at the fact there wasn't at least one vehicle goes down there the wrong way. Anyway, that's my premise. Now, we have this other proposal for the bike lanes. And let it be understood very, very perfectly clear. I have no problem with bicycles. I've owned one since I was 9 years old. Through an injury now, I can't ride one anymore. My bicycle, my son is not a professional, but next to a professional road racer. He owns tens of thousands of dollars worth of road race bicycles. And he's a very proud employee of this city, too, I might add. So there's nobody on the street has any problem with bicycles. As a matter of fact, it does my heart good to see families. Mom and dad, kids on bikes, maybe one in a little trailer. It does my heart good to see them on that street because it's a safe street. It's a one-way street. But somebody's going to get hurt because they dropped their guard. They think it's a nice, safe street. But somebody comes down there. My next door neighbor, 3 nights ago, was 6 inches from being clipped by a very inconsiderate driver who whipped in off Ottawa Street and nearly took the back end off of her bike. She was so shocked, she just stood there for 10 minutes. She couldn't move. And it's going on. And all I get for the last 4 years from the city, from the police department, from everybody is, the signage is under the rules. Now, what you're going to do with this proposal, you're going to add a form of traffic going the opposite way. It's legally. There's going to be arrows on the street or some signage that some of these motor vehicle drivers who either don't care or, unable to see them or whatever, but if they do see them, there's people who don't care or they're probably going to misunderstand them. You're adding to it. Okay, that was my initial fear with this whole project, and that was what I think I voiced over the telephone.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, okay, I'll wrap it up soon. But now we got this going down. What my neighbors have told you, want us to move across the street. Heard earlier this afternoon by one person who stood here that's going to make extra parking. I don't think math has changed since I went to school. But you're going to put in a raised median up on the Ottawa end, that's going to take up at least 120 feet on Nyberg Street, that the concrete wall is right on the curb. You can maybe put cars there, but nobody can exit from the other side. If you exit your car, you've got to exit into a live lane of traffic and cross 2 bicycle lanes. Okay, that's if you park out there. If you don't park out there, you either got to back in or back out of your driveway. You have to back in or back out of 2 live lanes of bicycle traffic out into a live lane. In front of my house, you just lower the value of my property. Somebody please tell me that taking a parking space on a one-way street where you can get out of your driver's door and step on the sidewalk in front of your home, somebody please tell me that by taking that away that it's not going to devalue my property. No? So, I don't know. I'm no professional speaker. That's no secret now. My opinion is, like, the idea is to get traffic across there from Ottawa to Sydney. Why do you need Nyberg? Go on a little further up and take the next street up, Dundas, is it? Yeah, the one on the corner. It's 214 feet away. That's a 2-way street. It's automatically quiet in traffic, right? Why do you need Nyberg to move this over?
Okay, Mr. Bile, can you please wrap up?
In an existing terrible situation, right? My personal opinion, I'll just finish up on this. I think the idea is ill-conceived. I think it's equally poorly planned. And I have no hopes that the execution of it is going to be any better. I have no hopes to see it, because it's just going to be a big clusterfuck, as I said. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do have some questions, Mr. Bott. We do have some questions for you. Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, at one point you talked about, when you were taking account, that there were 17 vehicles. Are those...
In 1 hour, sir.
No, but are vehicles automobiles or bicycles? What?
On that particular afternoon, I would say 100% they were commuters. But if I could just add to that, I've seen Grand River Transport buses. I've seen Canada Post mail trucks. I saw a tractor trailer one day. I've seen police vehicles not on emergency response.
That have gone down from Ottawa.
Turn in off Ottawa and go down the other way.
The wrong way down your street. Okay, I wanted to clarify whether those were motorized vehicles or bicycles, but it's...
Well, I don't think... I've talked to all the people on the street, and there's not one person, not one among them, that even has any kind of a problem with even whatever you want to call any of these motorized vehicles. Call them, pedal bikes. There's nobody there. As a matter of fact, a lot of them think the same way that I do. Good form. They're on a nice, safe street, even if they are technically going the wrong way. Good on them, especially families we see all the time. Great on them. But there's a danger right there. I'm sorry if I know it's just a question.
Right. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is in my ward. I presume, question to staff, I presume you've met with these residents. Is that correct, Josh? And if not, I'd be prepared to defer this so they can meet, defer it through till at least next Monday to get an answer to some of these concerns.
Through the chair, each resident along the street was sent a letter, and some residents called Josh and spoke directly with him about their comments and concerns, and we made tweaks to the design based on those comments.
So you've heard these comments we're hearing today?
Through the chair, yes. There's a number of driveways on the south side of the street. There are no driveways on the north side of the street. The retaining wall does come towards the curb for a small segment, but the net addition of parking is more significant on the north side than the south side. So.
I'd still be prepared to defer this item.
Okay. Why don't we, I'll call to order that for Monday.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the deferral? Okay, it's carried.
I thank you again for your patience with me. Thank you for your time.
We are going to move into caucus. I think the last item, why don't we push that item into, defer it to PSS, yeah, PSI. No, we don't have a delegation. Yeah. Is that doable? Okay.